Chapter 1793. Stephen and Famtis both knew what Chen Zhao was capable of. However, the other bodyguard, Frank, didn't know. He hadn't seen Chen Zhao fight anyone. When Chen Zhao casually walked up to the crocodile, Frank was shocked. He aimed his gun at the crocodile, but Chen Zhao only grabbed the 2-meter-long crocodile and lifted it up. It wasn't very big, but it was at least 100 kilograms. Chen Zhao actually lifted it up with one hand. Frank's jaw almost dropped. As for Stephen and Famtis, when they'd been chased by the demonized libel, they'd already seen Chen Zhao's power. Thus, a crocodile couldn't make them feel anything. "Chen, this crocodile isn't enough for you," Stephen said. "Skin it and roast it. There won't be much meat left." "I'll go down and get a bigger one," Chen Zhao said. With that, Chen Zhao took off his clothes, leaving only his boxers, and jumped into the water. Frank's eyeballs almost fell to the ground. Chen Zhao was asking to die, but Stephen and Famtis didn't care at all. After half a tank, Frank saw the water in front of him start to churn. Frank's heart tightened. Did Chen Zhao encounter crocodiles in the water? These were all crocodiles, real killer crocodiles. The largest could be 7 or 8 meters long and weigh close to 2 tons. They could dominate both freshwater and seawater. When they were hungry, they would even eat their own kind. In the animal world, they were definitely crazy. If humans encountered adult crocodiles in the water, they definitely couldn't win. Even on land, without firearms, they couldn't fight against these man-eating monsters. During World War II in the last century, there was a glorious story of a crocodile destroying a modern army of thousands. Putting aside the animals with infectious diseases, this was the most glorious war waged by wild animals against humans. There was no one else like it. In Frank's opinion, if Chen Zhao really encountered an adult crocodile in the water, he probably wouldn't be able to come up again. Whoosh! Suddenly, Chen Zhao stood up in the shallow water. Frank was shocked, but seeing that Chen Zhao was unharmed, he relaxed a little. Just then, Frank saw sleep tossing and turning behind Chen Zhao. Upon closer inspection, he realized that Chen Zhao was holding a crocodile's upper jaw with one hand. Frank swallowed a mouthful of saliva. That crocodile was at least 6 meters long. This was definitely an overlord among the Gulf crocodiles. It was obvious that the crocodile was very powerful from the force it slapped the water with. But was it really okay for Chen Zhao to just grab its upper jaw like that? The strange thing was that the saltwater crocodile couldn't close its jaws, even though its lower jaw wasn't bound. Frank was shocked. He couldn't understand how Chen Zhao had caught the crocodile with his bare hands. However, Chen Zhao seemed to be very familiar with the place, while Famudis and Stephen seemed to be very relaxed. They probably already knew what Chen Zhao was capable of. "Don't come over. Let's kill it first," Stephen shouted, jumping away immediately. He wasn't as capable as Chen Zhao. If Chen Zhao didn't hold on tight, the monster could send him to hell with a single bite. Chen Zhao grabbed the crocodile's upper jaw and twisted it. With a crack, the saltwater crocodile's tibia was instantly broken. However, it wasn't completely dead. Its body was still wriggling. Stephen only calmed down after the crocodile's stomach was cut open. "I told you to get a big one, but your head is too big." "We'll get rid of them sooner or later anyway. Isn't that what you want?" Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. He and Frank were in charge of starting a fire. He couldn't catch crocodiles in the water, but he could still start a fire. Famudis was in charge of cutting open the crocodile's stomachs. Chen Zhao and Stephen sat on a rock by the lake. With Chen Zhao, Stephen wasn't afraid that a crocodile would suddenly jump out and swallow him. "Chin, do you really have a way to kill all the crocodiles here?" "It's not troublesome," Chen Zhao said. "Abidos and Raymond can do it. Bring them here, and they'll probably kill most of the crocodiles here in a dozen days." "Raymond? Oh, that big snake, right? I don't think I saw him last time. Why did you hide him?" "I didn't hide him. It's just that his body has grown a bit too much recently. I didn't want to scare you." Last time I saw Raymond, he was 5 or 6 meters long. You said he's grown a bit too much? How much can he grow? Stephen remembered that the last time he saw Raymond, little Larissa wasn't even born yet. Raymond was long, but in his impression, Raymond had always been the skinny type. Compared to the python, he was at least half the size. He's 12 meters now, Chinjiao said. Stephen sucked in a breath of cold air. 12 meters. He could probably break the world record. I'm going to Moon Villa today. I want to see Raymond. Stephen was interested. Your daughter is still in the hospital. Don't bring that up. Dahlia's fine. Soon, the aroma of meat wafted from the barbecue stall. Famutus and Frank didn't understand why Chan Zhao would carry so many spices with him. Chili powder, cumin, salt, and pepper. Chen Zhao and Stephen started eating as soon as they arrived. Famutus and Frank didn't treat themselves as outsiders now. It was more fun to eat and drink together. Unfortunately, there was no alcohol. However, crocodile meat was really disgusting and had a fishy smell. Without alcohol, eating too much would be boring. Even Chen Zhao couldn't eat much. Such a big crocodile was wasted just like that. As for the small one, he didn't even roast it. Instead, he tossed it into the water. In the end, he just buried the rest of the big one. Stephen, what do you think about building your new home in the middle of the lake? Hey, that's a good idea. Why don't you build it in the middle of the lake? Mirror Lake is so much bigger than your lake. If we build it in the middle, it'll be too troublesome to go back and forth. They stayed at the top of the mountain for half a day. It wasn't until 3 in the afternoon that they went down. Stephen gave Yu Wenhui a call and asked about Delamore's situation. After making sure that everything was fine, he followed Chinjiao to Moon Villa. Today, Portia stayed at Moon Villa to take care of little Jerlin and Larissa. Portia saw that Chinjiao had left her, Jerlin, and Larissa at home. Portia thought that she would have a chance to uncover the mystery of Moon Villa's chef. In the end, she waited in the kitchen until noon, but no one came to cook. She was very disappointed. In the end, she could only cook herself. When she saw Stephen, she immediately started fawning over him again. She wasn't even this friendly to Chan Zhao, who paid her salary. Chapter 1794. Stephen was also shocked when he saw Raymond. Luckily, Raymond was still Raymond. Even though he had changed, he was still Raymond. After the initial shock, Stephen quickly calmed down. He observed Raymond with interest. This was not the first time Stephen had seen Raymond. Stephen had come into contact with Raymond when he was just a little snake. Stephen knew how intelligent Raymond was. Fantis and Frank, on the other hand, were frightened. They were afraid that the snake would swallow Stephen. What was a 12-meter snake? In this era, there were almost no snakes over 10 meters. It was not that there were none, but it was hard to find. Unless one ran to the deepest part of a tropical rainforest, they would not be found. Pythons and snakes were two different species. Raymond was a snake, not a python. But Raymond had the agility of a snake and the huge body of a python. The combination of the two was the scariest. If it was just a python in an open area, no matter how big it would not be a threat to a rational person. Because the python's mobility was too poor, the water was their main battlefield. Snakes were fast, but they were too small. A wooden stick could teach a snake how to sit. Raymond also had a characteristic that snakes and pythons did not have. He could chew. He ate by chewing like a mammal. So he did not need to strangle his prey like a python, nor did he need to rely on poison like a poisonous snake. Raymond had all the advantages of snakes and pythons, and even abilities that they did not have. Not far. The people from the Holy Fire sect were not far. He would meet them in, at most, a day. Delin thought to himself. The journey these few days was getting more and more difficult. This was not a tropical rainforest. But the journey was also difficult. It had been raining for days, not stopping for a moment. Norway was in northern Europe, so it was cold and humid all year round. This was where the equipment of the supernatural organization came into play. Even Dylan had to admit that they were well prepared. Waterproof clothing and tents played a great role in this environment. They could even find a way to get some cooked food. But Dylan looked down on them more and more. These guys did not seem to have any other skills besides bragging. Every time they went hunting, it was Klaus and the others. It seemed that in this team, the ones with the strongest combat power were the ordinary people like Klaus. Suddenly, a person appeared in front of the group, swaying in their direction. The team immediately stopped, and everyone raised their guard as they looked at that person. The man walked a few steps and suddenly sat on the ground. He stood up with difficulty, but he couldn't walk to the front of the team. After 2 or 3 steps, he fell to the ground. More Raz went up to check on the man. A moment later, he turned back and shook his head at everyone. Dead. Gaia had turned the body over and found that half of the body had been hit by some kind of magic. It's necromancy, Hila said. At this time, Doring walked over and said, I remember that there is a canyon of death in this forest. However, it's not that big of a deal. There are often teams going in and out of the canyon of death. Why do you want to enter Death Canyon? What's the point of going to such a dangerous place? Death canyons could be found all over the world. Most of the time, because of the geographical environment, animals or humans would die in the valley, and the deathly aura would not be able to leave. Over time, death energy filled the air, and the dead could not rest in peace. In the end, they turned into undead and wandered around the valley, eventually forming the Canyon of Death. Doring had never been to the Canyon of Death, but he had heard of it. At least 20% of spiritualists in Norway had entered the Canyon of Death. There is a magic material called the dying flower growing in the Canyon of Death, Doring said. If we can find it, it can be sold for tens of thousands of dollars. Also, the Canyon of Death isn't dangerous. So many spiritualists go in and out. Although he had plotted against the supernatural organization, he didn't lie about this. He didn't need to lie. Anyway, the people from the Holy Fire sect would come soon. Helis looked at the man's injury and said, The necromancy spell that killed him is very powerful. Let's go and take a look. We haven't found any traces of the giant these days. They were doubtful about whether they could successfully find the giant. Logically speaking, the giant was as big as a hill. When it moved, it might not be earth-shattering, but it should at least leave some obvious traces. It shouldn't be completely untraceable. But the truth was that they couldn't find any traces of the giant at all. However, they had been in the forest for 6 or 7 days, and they hadn't fought at all. This made everyone a little angry. Other than the withered tree ghost territory they had encountered a few days ago, for people had moved around a little. The others were just here for sightseeing. But of course, they couldn't vent their bad moods. So after thinking, Wes said, Let's go take a look at the Canyon of Death. If they could encounter some battles, it could ease everyone's agitated emotions. Gaia nodded. Okay. Doring looked down on these people even more. They only wanted to go to a place like the Canyon of Death that wasn't dangerous. He really didn't understand where these Americans got the courage to find the legendary giant. Even if they found it, could they really defeat the giant? Or did they have the courage to fight the giant? But he was kind enough to show them the way. After all, these Americans didn't lack money. If they had a good time in Death Canyon, he could also find a few dying flowers along the way. Doring directly used the guide spirit and found the direction of the Canyon of Death. Finding such a fixed location was very easy. It wasn't difficult at all. After walking for a while, they found another corpse. It had the same injury as the previous one. It seemed like the Canyon of Death wasn't far away. These should be spiritualists from Western Europe. This symbol seems to be a disciple of the Mountain Sect. The Mountain Sect was very famous in the United Kingdom. West recognized them mainly from the Mountain Sect insignia they wore. The Mountain Sect was a minority religion, but they acted more like an ordinary supernatural force. They didn't develop followers and believers. They just fought for territory all day and developed the businesses and companies under the Mountain Sect. The most unbelievable thing was that the Mountain Sect was a shareholding company. It was divided into major and minor shareholders. It had to be said that this religion, which was completely modeled after a listed company, was a brand new model. Of course, they weren't a cult, so they were developing quite well. It was said that they had many cooperation projects with the government. They had branches all over Europe. Chapter 1795. At the other end of the forest, a team was also passing through the forest toward the supernatural organizations team. Everyone in this team wore the same red and black clothes, but there was a red flame printed on the back. They were naturally from the Sacred Fire sect. There were more than 50 of them. They couldn't say that all of them were masters, but at least a dozen of them were quite famous in Northern Europe, especially the person in charge of the division, Magri Modric. He was known as a tyrant in Northern Europe. Among the many people in charge of the division, his name was also very famous. Most of Magri Modric's subordinates were elites. To put it bluntly, most of them had some ability and were extremely daring. They used their own methods to do many evil things and were wanted by the government or the spiritual world. In the end, they could only hide in the Sacred Fire sect to avoid trouble. These people all had one thing in common. They ignored the rules of the world. In this regard, they were very much like Magneto from the X-Men. They thought they were better than others and didn't treat ordinary people as humans. Of course, in reality, neither the government nor the spiritual world would allow such people to be too active. The Norwegian Sacred Flame sect was considered one of the more powerful sects in Europe. Although the Nordic spiritual world was more active, the Norwegian government wasn't powerful. So, it gave the Sacred Fire sect a chance to develop. At this moment, a corpse appeared in front of them. "Guardian, look at this corpse." Lev, Magri Modric's second in command, shouted. As the head of the Norwegian branch, Magri Modric's position in the church was that of a protector. Magri took a few steps forward and looked at the corpse. Frowning, he said, "Necromancy." "Guardian, don't you think this corpse looks familiar? You know him?" Magri Modric asked. "No, I'm talking about the magic on this corpse." Magri Modric thought for a moment and suddenly remembered. He immediately exclaimed, "Isn't this the madman Ribrick?" "Yes, this is Ribrick's magic." Speaking of Ribrick, Magri Modric felt a headache and helplessness. Ribrick had once been a member of the Sacred Fire sect. In essence, he was no different from the other Sacred Fire sect members. If there was any difference between them, Ribrick was even crazier. To be precise, he was a complete lunatic. The other members of the Sacred Flame sect knew when to put on airs, although they had all killed and robbed before. However, he would not disregard the wine and start a massacre. But Ribrick didn't care. The things he wanted, the women he wanted, he would just take them by force. Furthermore, his methods were extremely cruel, leaving no survivors. This also caused the entire Northern Europe region to be agitated. The government flew into a rage and issued a must-kill order to the spirit world. This was one of the few times in recent times that the government had issued an order to the supernatural world. Even the Sacred Flame sect could not withstand this pressure. In the end, they could only hand Ribrick over to the alliance of several supernatural organizations. However, Ribrick had relied on his powerful strength to do so. After killing dozens of spiritualists, he swaggered off. Over the next few years, news of Liblick's bloody massacre spread from time to time. However, Ribrick no longer had anything to do with the Sacred Flame sect. Therefore, they did not care about what Ribrick did. No one wanted to run into a lunatic like Ribrick, not even the Sacred Flame sect. This guy was a complete lunatic who did not know how to control himself. Furthermore, he also had a type of necromancy that he had created himself, which struck fear into the hearts of the entire spiritual world. This is Ribrick's famous magic, dead cells. Lev asked. Just now, Magri Modric had only felt the aura of death on the corpse. Only now could he be completely sure that the magic left on the corpse was dead cells. I hope we don't run into that lunatic here, Magri Modric said. Even though there were more than 50 of them, Magri Modric was not confident that they could defeat Ribrick. Even if they could win, it would probably be a Pyrrhic victory. Guardian, there are so many of us. Do we still need to fear Ribrick? Since you know about the dead cells, do you know how terrifying this magic is? Magri Modric asked. It is said that this dead cells was created by the lunatic Ribrick. If you come into contact with the dead cells, it will erode your magic. Once your magic is exhausted, you will die, Lev said. Actually, if it is just to guard against the dead cells, most of our team can do it. As long as there is a defensive magic, the dead cells cannot get close to you, Magri Modric said. Then what is so terrifying about this magic? Actually, the most terrifying thing is that Ribrick can recycle the dead cells that have absorbed magic power and then turn them into his magic power source. In the past 20 years or so, he has killed hundreds of spiritualists. Almost every spiritualist died under the dead cells, and the magic power of every dead person became his magic power source. It's like he carries hundreds of magic power batteries with him. He has almost inexhaustible magic power. When Lev heard Magri Modric's words, his face instantly became extremely frightened. A terrifying enemy with nearly limitless magic power? How could they deal with such an enemy? Guardian, doesn't that mean he is invincible? Of course he's not invincible. There are still people in this world who can crush him. For example, the 23rd generation Blood Mary of the Scarlet Church. 12 years ago, the 23rd generation Blood Mary personally went out to kill Ribrick. With the 23rd generation Blood Mary's help, do you think Ribrick can escape? Of course he couldn't escape. The 23rd Blood Mary is a powerful being. She subdued Ribrick in one move, but then she let Ribrick go. Of course he couldn't escape. Why is that? Because Ribrick and the 23rd generation Blood Mary were in the downtown area. Ribrick threatened the 23rd generation Blood Mary that if she didn't let him go, he would self-destruct. If someone else self-destructed, the 23rd generation Blood Mary wouldn't care. But Ribrick's self-destruction could cause heavy casualties in the downtown area, so the 23rd generation Blood Mary could only let him go. What about the 23rd generation Blood Mary? I don't know about the others. As far as I know, no one can fight Ribrick head-on, Magri Modric said. That's why I don't want to meet Ribrick. Even if we can win, I'm afraid we will suffer heavy casualties. 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 1796. Half a day passed. The people from the supernatural organization arrived at Death Canyon before the sky turned dark. Along the way, they found many corpses. Some had clearly been dead for a long time. Some only had piles of white bones left. Who knew how long they had been dead? Moreover, it could be seen that many of the corpses had died in the same way. This is Death Canyon, Dylan said. Let's go in before it gets dark. It'll be more troublesome at night than during the day. The undead are active at night. Just then, Helly spoke up and stopped everyone in their tracks. Don't go in, Hela said. There's a powerful guy inside. I'll go in. Dylan scoffed at Hela's words. Many people went in and out of Death Canyon. He hadn't heard of any powerful guy either. What was the point of this girl making such a fuss? However, judging from the others' expressions, they seemed to believe her. Helis, is the guy inside very powerful? Yes, very powerful, Helis said. You guys won't be able to handle him. Death magic is too strange. There are so many of us, so Gaia should be able to beat him. I'm 80% confident. Norma and him are 50 to 50, and so is an elite. The others probably can't beat him. He's that powerful. West asked in surprise. He didn't doubt Helis' guess. You're going to fight him alone? Yes. Since he's a necromancer, of course I have to fight him personally. Plus, he's quite famous among necromancers. Okay, West said, but you have to tell us if there's trouble. Send us a signal. Actually, he had the same personality as Chen Zhao. He was very protective. He didn't have any intention of fighting one-on-one either. In fact, in the spiritual world, one-on-one fights were never recommended. Most of the time, spells could restrain each other to a certain extent. Unless they were powerful to a certain extent, it was obvious that they would be restrained in a small area. Therefore, one-on-one fights didn't mean who was stronger. Gaia went up and patted Gila's shoulder. "Don't make me go in and clean up the mess." Actually, everyone knew that Gilas was a very competitive person. Their slogan in the association every day was to become someone who could fight alongside Qin Zhao, even if this slogan seemed unrealistic, because they all knew how powerful Qin Zhao was. But Helios was never discouraged by this. Once Gaia said that Helith would definitely not send out a distress signal, but at the same time, she would also face this battle with absolute caution. He would not underestimate his opponent just because he was 80% confident. Yes, I know. Harel was also clear-minded and naturally knew that Gaia was trying to goad her. After that, he walked into the Death Valley alone. His figure gradually disappeared in the hazy rain. "We'll rest here for the night," West said. Delin was sick and tired of this. These Americans. He really didn't understand what they were doing here. A mere death canyon was enough to make them feel as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Now he had to spend the night in this completely uncovered place. Once they left the tent, they were all wet. Thinking of this, Delin felt irritated. However, his words carried little weight in the team. No one would listen to him. After setting up the tent, Derlin went inside. He didn't greet the others either. He took out his phone and sent a message. "Where are you?" But he was very careful. After sending the message, he deleted it. Very soon, the other side replied. After receiving the message, Derlin was extremely happy, because the Sacred Fire sect wasn't far from them. "That Derlin has been secretly sending messages a few times recently," Klaus said to Gaia. Morid planted a true vision seed in him. He already knows everything about him. "A group of people is approaching us," Gaia said. Gaia said, "Our people have been feeling down for the past few days. We need a big battle to lift everyone's spirits." Actually, a few people in the team already knew about this. West definitely knew, but he only wanted to let a few people know. They treated it as an accidental attack. This way, they could better lift everyone's spirits. Of course, the prerequisite was that no one was hurt. Derlin thought that he was being careful and cautious, but how could he hide it from some people? Just then, there was another loud rumble in the sky. This was the second thunder near the withered tree demon's territory a few days ago. Then a huge body appeared, and this body was right above their heads. Gaia and Klaus were outside the tent and naturally saw this huge body. It was the feet of the giant, and the giant was stepping towards their camp. "Oh no!" Gaia and Klaus both exclaimed, but the giant's foot did not land. It was like it was stepping through the air, leaving no footprints on the ground. As the thunder disappeared, the giant's figure also disappeared. "That's not a giant, more like some kind of image," Gaia said doubtfully. "If that's the case, then does the giant we've been searching for really exist?" Klaus was also a little hesitant. The Scarlet Mission stated that the giant wreaked havoc in the forest, so it attracted the attention of the Scarlet Church. That means the giant exists. But if it's such a huge giant, the destruction it would cause would be huge. It might even destroy a small city. Even if it's not near a densely populated area, it would at least cause great damage. "It's not as simple as attacking a few humans," Gaia said. "You mean the giant we saw isn't the one attacking humans?" "I don't think so. If it was in a densely populated area, it wouldn't be able to hide it. If it was in the wilderness, I'm afraid there wouldn't be anyone left alive. If the giant stepped over, I'm afraid everyone would die. So either the quest itself is a lie, or the giant we saw wasn't the real giant." Just then, Morid came out of the tent and walked towards Gaia. "Gaia, someone stepped on the seeds I left on the road. Someone is approaching us. How many are there?" Gaia asked. About 40 to 50 people. I can't calculate the exact number, Morid said. The seeds he left were like a sensor device that could roughly determine the distance and number of people. But it couldn't be absolutely accurate. 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 1797. Pa! A crisp sound came from under Modric's feet. Modric stopped and bent down to pick up a seed on the ground. Is this a long-distance message? Modric recognized the seed. Looks like we've been discovered. It's okay. Just a bunch of unruly people, Modric said nonchalantly. Sometimes power could decide everything. If it was in a society, he might be able to turn the situation around with his wits and wits. But this was a forest. All wits and wits would be crushed by absolute power. Magri Modric had enough confidence in the Sacred Flame sect. This group of people was 80% of the Sacred Flame Order's Norwegian branch's combat power. He had brought almost all of the Norwegian division's combat power. Those who didn't come only made up 20% of the combat power. Most of them were peripheral members or even ordinary people. Mainly, he wanted to try and see if he could find the legendary giants. If they accidentally completed the Scarlet Mission, then even if they were members of the Sacred Flame sect, they could still go to the Scarlet Church to receive the reward. Magri Modric still had some ideas and ambitions. Of course, the first task was to get rid of the Americans. It was said that the Americans were quite rich. They could pay $200,000 for a guide. That was to say, if he could take them all down, then millions or even tens of millions of dollars would not be a problem. For an organization like the Sacred Flame sect that had been attacked and suppressed by the government and others, money had always been a problem that they had to worry about. Of course, extortion and blackmail were not impossible. The key problem was the trouble that would follow. Once the bottom line was crossed, then they would be the enemy of the world. For example, Riblik. He was in a situation where he was the enemy of the world. The Sacred Flame sect was arrogant, but not crazy. Kidnapping ordinary people was meaningless. Kidnapping rich people would have a huge impact. Once the government found out, then the government would retaliate with unparalleled ferocity. Although individuals in the spiritual world were stronger than ordinary people, but the government was still the government. In this era, the power of the government was above everything. So for the Sacred Flame sect, the Americans were the god of fortune who gave them money. Most importantly, there would be no follow-up trouble. So what if there was follow-up trouble? Could the power or organization behind them take revenge on the Sacred Flame sect? Not long after, the Sacred Flame sect's team appeared at the periphery of Death Canyon. In the heavy rain, they could see a few figures in front of them. Why weren't they prepared? Didn't you say there were more than 30 people? Could it be an ambush nearby? Lev asked. Ambush? Magri Modric sneered. This was not a real battlefield. In such a complicated environment, and with a limited number of people, it was impossible for them to survive. The so-called ambush was meaningless. Lev, teach them a lesson, Magri Modric said. Lev took 2 steps forward, not caring if he was exposed to the Americans. Raising his arms high, and Anong chanted an incantation. At this moment, the raindrops in the sky suddenly turned into sharp icicles. Hua, hua, hua. Suddenly, tens of thousands of icicles fell from the sky. Then the few people outside the tent covered their heads and scurried away. Then the campsite instantly exploded. One by one, they came out of their tents with their heads bleeding. Wow, what's going on? What happened? The icicles were not fatal, but if they hit the head, they would definitely pierce through the skin. Delin ran out too. When he saw the Sacred Flame sect, he could not help but be happy. When he looked at the battered and exhausted Americans, he felt even more carefree. A few days ago, they had been showing off in front of him. Now, it was time to see how they would die. Gaia, Morid, West, Klaus, and the others did not warn him immediately. They covered their heads and hid. Gaia, what happened? Who attacked us? Did those bastards attack us? Bastards, I'm going to kill them. Jalanash had a fiery temper. She had been holding it in for a few days and had nowhere to vent. Now, she was being attacked for no reason. Of all things, the icicle had scratched her cheek. For a woman, appearance was as important as life, especially a woman with a bad temper. For a moment, the campsite was in chaos. All of them were cursing the attackers. By then, the people from the Sacred Flame sect had spread out and surrounded the people from the supernatural organization. You've been surrounded. Surrender now. Otherwise, we won't go easy on you. Magri Modric shouted proudly. Suddenly, a fireball appeared above the campsite. It was a huge fireball with a diameter of more than 1 meter. Go to hell. Jalanash threw a super explosive bomb in Magri Modric's direction. There was a hint of surprise in Magri Modric's eyes. What a powerful elementalist. Magri Modric himself was an elemental sorcerer and specialized in fire magic. Delin was shocked too. Jalanash was actually so powerful. He was actually able to release such a powerful fire-type magic. Magri Modric also raised one hand, and a super explosive bomb appeared above his head. Boom! The two super explosive bombs collided with each other, causing an earth-shattering explosion. Magri Modric looked at Jalanash, who had released the super explosive bomb. Then, he looked at Jalanash's heaving chest. His lips curled. It seemed that releasing such a super explosive bomb was too strenuous for this girl. Jalanash's chest was indeed heaving, but it wasn't because she was tired. It was because of anger. Seems like you won't give up until you see the coffin. Magri Modric's gaze was indifferent. He raised his right hand again. An even bigger fireball with even more terrifying power formed. This wasn't an explosive bomb anymore. It was called a small sun. The rain couldn't get close to the small sun. The entire entrance to Death Valley was completely illuminated by the small sun. Now, tell me, do you surrender? Delin immediately shouted, Magri Modric, it's me. I'm Delin. He didn't want to be affected by these Americans. So, he immediately revealed his identity and joined the Sacred Flame sect's side. Then, he could enjoy the rights of a victor. Jalanash wasn't shocked when she saw Magri Modric's magic. She was only happy. I like this magic. I want it, Jalanash said like a bandit. Chapter 1798. Klaus Nami. Come behind me, Risa said. Risa didn't need to worry about the others, but the lightning squad couldn't resist this large-scale magic. Klaus and the others were ordinary people. They couldn't resist this kind of attack. The power of the little sun in front of them was probably equivalent to a tomahawk missile. Mr. Magri Modric, I think they seem to be looking down on you, Doring said. Doring said, when they looked at you, they did not show any respect or fear. You are a tyrant. Magri Modric glanced at Doring and then at the Americans. It seemed like, as Doring said, they were not afraid. Magri Modric didn't like this kind of enemy. He liked to see his enemies terrified and at a loss. Magri Modric's right arm, which was raised in the air, moved forward. The little sun shot towards the center of the camp. Boom! The huge flames seemed to be able to destroy everything, but the fire and impact seemed to be extinguished faster than expected. Maybe it was because of the rain. But Magri Modric believed that the power of the little sun was enough to kill half of them. The other half would also lose the power to resist. But when the fire gradually disappeared, the group of Americans still stood in the same place. They didn't seem to be hurt. The figures in the camp were messy. Tall, short, men, women, all stood there unevenly. But in this chaos, there was an indescribable uniformity. Risa's petite body seemed to be panting, and her face was a bit irritable. She had absorbed too much heat. She needed to find a place to pour it out. Or a person. Just then, a big hand rested on Risa's shoulder. Risa, do you need to share some? Gaia asked. No, I like this kind of full load. I can still hold more, Risa said calmly. Magri Modric was a bit surprised. Why didn't they die? There wasn't even anyone injured. Could it be that one of them had some kind of magic that could restrain his little son? Jalanash walked out of the camp alone and walked towards Magri Modric. Sir, I think we can talk, Jalanash said, staring at Magri Modric. Have you chosen to surrender? Magri Modric was still arrogant as he looked down at Jalanash. No, give me this spell and I'll let you live, okay? Jalanash looked at Modric sincerely. Huh, little girl, do you know my name? I'm from the Holy Flame sect. I'm a tyrant. Magri Modric said, Do you know what I'm best at? Or do you think that by blocking one of my attacks, you will have the ability to fight against me? Tyrant. Touching her chin, Jalanash turned to West. Mr. West, will the chairman agree if I call myself Tyrant? If you're called Tyrant, then I'll be called Queen. Lisa immediately joined the discussion. You can only call me Princess, Moore said. No, I don't want to share a name with a bear, Risa said. Magri Modric's face darkened. These Yanks didn't seem to care about him at all. They didn't even care about the Holy Flame sect. This wasn't good. Damn Yanks, you'll pay for your ignorance. Magri Modric yelled. No one liked to be looked down upon or even ignored. Plus, Magri Modric was a very hot-tempered person. Jalanash looked at Magri Modric. Seems like you don't agree, but it doesn't matter. I'll make you speak anyway. Saying this, Jalanash pointed at Magri Modric and made a shooting motion. By you! A red light shot out from Jalanash's finger. Magri Modric immediately cast a magic shield on himself, but the red light instantly shattered the shield and pierced through Magri Modric's shoulder. Everyone was shocked. Magri Modric was injured. He was actually injured. Death Ray. Magri Modric was also proficient in fire magic. Of course, he knew this was Death Ray. It had extremely powerful penetrating power. Dellen's expression changed slightly. It seemed like these Yanks were stronger than he'd imagined. At least Jalanash's strength surprised Dellen. After all, the person beside him was the tyrant Magri Modric. Not everyone could hurt him. Smiling, Jalanash looked at Magri Modric. Magri Modric was even more furious. Attack at will. Instantly, more than 50 Holy Flame sect disciples attacked the members of the supernatural organization. Just then, vines suddenly drilled out of the ground. These vines came very suddenly and instantly grabbed 7 or 8 Holy Flame sect disciples. The few disciples screamed in agony. The vines wrapped tighter and tighter around them, almost crushing their bones. Morad looked at West. Mr. West, can I kill them? Of course, as you wish. West stood where he was and nodded slightly. Dellen was even more shocked. This young man called Morad was actually such a powerful nature plant spiritualist. At the same time, Lisa also attacked. She started to absorb heat and poured it on the Holy Flame sect disciples. Lisa slapped more than 10 times in the air, each with a powerful and high-temperature impact. The disciples who couldn't cast a magic shield in time were instantly torn to pieces. Even if they had a magic shield, it didn't mean they could withstand the impact. They just didn't end up as pitifully as their companions. On the other hand, Gakira and Dongya Tianchi loved this kind of chaotic battle the most. Most importantly, they could kill people. Dongya Tianchi, in particular, turned into a samurai the moment he unsheathed his katana. The weapon he was holding was Demon Blade, White-Faced Ghost. When the blade was unsheathed, demonic aura filled the air. Dongya Tianchi turned into a wild and cruel monster. There was only slash in his mind. One slash at a time. Beside him, Genkira reminded him. White-Faced Ghost, behave yourself. Otherwise, our boss will throw you into the lava. Instantly, Dongya Tianchi sobered up. White-Faced Ghost really wanted to kill Genkira too, but he didn't want to face Chen Zhao's anger. His current state didn't give him absolute freedom, but it was at least acceptable. Damn, these people are hard to deal with. Retreat, retreat, Magri Modric yelled. Suddenly, from the direction of Death Valley, a cloud darker than the night shrouded the area. 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 1799. Helis strolled out, but she was still holding a head in her hand. Seeing Helis come out of the Death Valley, everyone made way for her. Helis, in principle, we don't object to you killing people, Wes said, but we can't tolerate the birth of a pervert. Throw this head away and we'll still be on the same side. I'm not a pervert. Helis threw the head on the ground, helplessly. I just want what's in his head. Fine. Next time you carry a head, can you find something to carry it with? I don't have anything to carry, Helis said. My clothes are expensive. I don't want to use them to carry this disgusting head. Go find something to carry it with you. Oh, how long will it take to extract the thing from this head? Can you do it in Norway? Or do you need to bring it back? It'll take a long time. Fine. Looks like I need to find a way to send this head back home. Helis looked at the scene. Did I miss something? Magri Modric saw the head. He recognized Riblik. Back then, he was the one who had tried his best to pull Riblik into the Holy Flame sect. Of course, in the end, he had personally handed Riblik over to the organization. So, he remembered it clearly, even though many years had passed. That crazy, perverted, terrifying madman, filled with evil. He was an undefeatable madman. Modric remembered it very, very clearly. Riblik. But today they had reunited, and in such a way. Riblik only had a head left. The face of the head was also filled with shock and astonishment. How could this be? Who was that black-clothed girl? How could she have killed Malik? How could a girl kill that terrifying madman? Helis, don't fight with me, Jalanash said. I want the man called Tyrant alive. West, get ready too. We need to send him back to the headquarters too. Which one is Tyrant? Helis asked curiously. Which one? Isn't he powerful? He has to be at least 1/10 as powerful as the president to have that name. That's him. Jalanash pointed at Magri Modric. But this nickname belongs to me now. He has a spell that I like. Magri Modric suddenly felt a chill. He met Hallis's gaze. He noticed that Hallis was a little interested in him. After all, this girl had just killed Ribrik. Modric didn't think he could compete with Ribrik. He also didn't think that he could fight against the person who killed Ribrik. This was a true level suppression. All right, I won't do it. Harel shrugged. In fact, her magic power had not yet recovered. She had used the abyssal demon in the battle with Ribrik. It couldn't be said that he didn't have any fighting strength now. However, he was definitely not at his peak condition. The battle in the Death Canyon just now had satisfied her. Therefore, for the time being, she did not want to make a move. Moreover, these enemies were too weak compared to Ribrik. A few of their main forces did not make a move. 2/3 of the work had been done. Now, only 1/3 of the people were left. No one in the Sacred Flame sect, including Magri Modric, had expected this. These Americans were so strong. Run! Someone shouted. However, they could not escape from the man-eating beast. White-faced, Ghost liked this kind of chasing fish and slashing game the most. Except for Gatella, who needed to supervise White-faced Ghost. Everyone else stayed where they were. Jalanash looked at Magri Modric with a smile on her face. See, give me that spell, and I'll let you go. Magri Modric's face was pale, but Dellen's face was even paler, because he suddenly realized the mistake he had made. He had underestimated these Americans. These Americans had not really made a move along the way, but this did not mean they were not strong. Most importantly, he was a traitor. Traitors were more hated than enemies. For example, in Germany after World War II, ordinary soldiers would not be court-martialed, because they were just manipulated pawns. Only those generals and leaders were court-martialed. And those traitors. Magri Modric's eyes flashed. He was looking for a chance to break out. The only thing he was glad about was that he was a fire elemental. He had not risked his life alone and had not gone deep into the enemy's line of defense. He had been standing on the periphery, so he was considering if he should turn and run now. Would he have the chance? Do you want to run? Jalanash was too experienced in battle. Looking at Magri Modric's eyes, Jalanash guessed his intentions. Magri Modric was secretly furious. Damn this little girl. Why was her intuition so sharp? Guardian, let's surrender. Lev was already desperate. Was this still the spiritualist from the Magic Desert? This was like a national football team suddenly running to the Champions League and then abusing a powerhouse team. Not winning, but losing 10 o'clock. This result was so absurd, so unacceptable. There are too few people, not enough to go around, Moore had complained. In fact, he could handle most of the enemies alone. Magri Modric gritted his teeth and shouted, I demand a fair duel with you. If I win, I demand the corresponding rights. Everyone looked at Magri Modric. It was unknown whether they were surprised by Magri Modric's choice, or surprised by his courage. In fact, Magri Modric was just putting his all on the line. He didn't think he could escape. He wasn't good at speed. If he wanted to rely on his own 2 feet to escape the forest and the strong people in front of him, that was completely impossible. That was why he came up with such a strange request. What if you lose? Jalanash asked. Then I accept being your captive. Fuck, you're a captive now, Jalanash scolded. She wasn't a lady. If she was a lady, she wouldn't have wanted to get the nickname Tyrant just because she thought it was imposing. If you lose, then hand over your magic, Jalanash said. How about that? Nothing much. Magri Modric knew very well that magic was his life-saving card. If he handed it over, he would completely become a lamb on the chopping board. Chapter 1800. Jalanash, Hera said. Kill him without him saying anything. Just leave his head intact. Modric was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. How could he forget about this woman? Since she could get the memory she wanted from Ribric's head, she could definitely get the same memory from his head too. That's right. Jalanash remembered. She looked at Modric with an even more unfriendly gaze. If that's the case, there's no need for this duel. Just kill him. Wait. I agree. If I lose, I'll give you the spell you want. What a joke. This was his last trump card, not a talisman to kill him. If his trump card became a talisman to kill him, what was the point? Even if he didn't want to use the spell, it wasn't as precious as his own life. All right, I'll reluctantly agree, Jalanash said. They can't interfere during our duel. Otherwise, you'll lose and you'll have to let me go. Okay. West didn't care. He knew what Modric was thinking like the back of his hand. In this duel, Magri Modric had the advantage from the start. Because Jalanash wouldn't kill him, she had to keep him alive to give the spell. But he could be heavy-handed. It would be best if he could force the others to attack. That way he would win even if he didn't win. Then the other party would have to keep their promise and let him go. Jalanash understood this too, but she didn't care either. Just like what Magri Modric himself believed in. In the face of absolute power, all schemes and plots were laughable and foolish farces. The old members of the supernatural organization had completely different thoughts in the past and present. Back then, Jalanash was still the #1 fighter in the organization. Back then, she didn't need to think about who she could defeat. She only needed to think about one thing. That was to make it impossible for the other people in the organization to surpass her. Before Chen Zhao came, she'd maintained it very well. After Chen Zhao came, she and the other people in the organization finally understood something. They didn't need to defeat 1 or 2 people, but a group of people. The Tower of Trials gave them this opportunity. When each of them entered the Tower of Trials alone, they could not even last for a moment. Up until now, Each and every one of them had relied on their own strength to pass through the first level, and someone had also passed through the second level. What they were best at was not one-on-one, but one-on-many. When a person could easily deal with multiple opponents at once, it would be extremely easy to deal with one-on-one. Moreover, when facing enemies, everyone instinctively used the number of monsters on the trial tower to calculate the enemy's strength. As for Magri Modric's strength, everyone already had an idea in their hearts. He wasn't weak. With Magri Modric's strength, as long as he was given a few chances, he would probably be able to pass the first level. According to the strength of the monsters on the second floor, it should be equivalent to the strength of 30 monsters. Everyone had a different evaluation in their hearts, but everyone's evaluation of Magri Modric wasn't too far off from each other. Jalanash had just passed level 2 not long ago and was now struggling on level 3. The crowd made way for Magri Modric and Jalanash. Doring and Lev wanted to run. However, Gaia placed her large hand on their shoulders. "Where are you going? There's going to be a big show here." With bitter expressions, the two were pulled to the edge of the arena by Gaia. Magri Modric glanced at the Americans around him. Then his gaze fell on Jalanash. "Are you ready? Can we start now?" Magri Modric asked. "Any time," Jalanash replied. "Then let's start," West ordered. Magri Modric immediately wanted to throw out Little Sun again. However, just then Jalanash's 10 fingers shot out 10 red rays at the same time. Magri Modric was dumbfounded. Fight my ass! How could he fight like this? Jalanash's death ray had pierced through Magri Modric's shoulder, but it didn't cause much damage to him. However, it didn't cause too much damage to him. It wasn't even a serious injury, let alone a fatal one. Of course, this was because Jalanash didn't plan on killing him. If Jalanash really wanted to kill him, she could just shoot at another position. He would either be seriously injured or crippled. How could he fight one-on-one? So, Magri Modric purposely cast 2 fire shields on himself. With the power of the death ray he had just experienced, he felt that 2 fire shields should be able to block Jalanash's killer death ray. However, Magri Modric didn't expect that. Jalanash's killer weapon wasn't the death ray, but the 10-finger volley. Magri Modric's 2 fire shields could block 1 death ray. But he wasn't naive enough to think that he could block Jalanash's volley at the same time. Jalanash's 10 fingers could probably turn him into a hornet's nest with just a sweep. I admit defeat. Magri Modric was very decisive, without any hesitation. If he could fight and had a chance, Magri Modric definitely wouldn't admit defeat so easily. But it was precisely because he didn't have a chance that he didn't want to lose both in person and spirit, being able to shoot the death ray with 10 fingers at the same time. This was enough to show how strong Jalanash's magic was. In addition, it was extremely fast and had great destructive power. So Magri Modric didn't think he had a chance to fight back. If Jalanash wanted to kill him, he wouldn't even have a chance to fight back. Maybe the difference in power between them wasn't that big, but the magic they had decided the outcome of this duel. Magri Modric also had instantaneous magic, but it wasn't powerful enough to hurt Jalanash. And Jalanash's death ray wasn't just fast, it also had shocking penetrative power. He believed that Jalanash wouldn't really kill him, but if they really fought and Jalanash missed and hit a vital spot, it would be very fatal. Rather than admit defeat after being trampled on, it was better to save his last bit of face. The magic is in my phone. I'll send it to you. Magri Modric was very trustworthy. To put it bluntly, he just hoped that Jalanash would leave him a way out for this reason. Okay, leave the thing and you can go. Jalanash didn't want to make things difficult for him. After all, they didn't have a deep hatred, and she got what she needed. But this guy has to stay. Jalanash pointed at Delin. Chapter 1801. Delin was so scared that he peed his pants. Sure enough, they were going to settle the score. Delin raised his head and looked at Gaia, who had her hand on his shoulder. His legs had already turned to jelly. Of course, Modric wouldn't care about Dellen. He wasn't one of his people. And from their tone, they didn't seem to have any intention of making things difficult for Leviticus. He had no obligation to stand up for Dellen. Plus, he hated Dellen, who dragged him into the pit. Were these Americans really weaklings? Why the fuck did you find a bunch of weaklings like this in Europe? Forget about extortion. He had to save his life first. There was no need to talk about revenge or anything like that. He'd brought 80% of the Holy Fire Sect's combat power from the Norway branch, and they'd all died here. How could he talk about revenge now? He didn't have the ability to. Can you tell me who you are? Why? Do you want revenge? West smiled at Magri Modric. Modric shook his head and said calmly, I don't dare, but I want to get to know you. North America, Supernatural Organization. I hope we'll have a chance to work together in the future, Modric said indifferently. Modric wasn't saying it out of anger. He really had this thought. Of course, it was more likely that they wouldn't have any contact. There were so many organizations in the world. The Holy Fire Sect was only popular in Europe. Unless the supernatural organizations, tentacles, extended to Europe and they had a huge conflict. Otherwise, they wouldn't have any contact with each other. Modric had never thought of sending people to North America to seek revenge from the supernatural organization. What a joke! The supernatural organization had already shown such great power. If he wanted revenge, what price would he have to pay? And if he couldn't take revenge and angered them, then the supernatural organization might come to him. Modric couldn't say that he didn't hate them, but he was more concerned about whether it was worth it or not, and whether it was possible. The answer was obvious. While there was hatred between them, Modric didn't want to make enemies. You're so powerful. Why haven't I heard of you in North America? Modric could clearly feel that there were still a few people in their team who hadn't made a move yet. Those people were the strongest in their team. When we feel the need, our names will be heard all over the world, West said confidently. Then, will you participate in the Battle of Holy Glory? What Battle of Holy Glory? West was stunned. Everyone else, including Dellen and Lev, revealed looks of astonishment. You don't know? That's impossible. You guys are definitely qualified. We really don't know. Can you tell us about the Battle of Holy Glory? This year's Battle of the Holy Glory will be held in Istanbul. Istanbul used to be known by several names, such as Constantinople. It was once the capital of New Rome and later the capital of the Ottoman Empire. Of course, Istanbul was well documented in history textbooks. There were even more that were not recorded in history textbooks. For example, his status in the spiritual world. The Battle of the Holy Glorious Ones is actually a martial arts competition jointly organized by the 3 religions and 9 nations to select the Holy Glorious Ones for the next 10 years. 3 religions and 9 nations? Taoism, Buddhism, JD religion. The 9 nations are Japan, Russia, Norway, England, Austria, Vatican City, Turkey, India, and Egypt. There are 10 Holy Glorious Ones each year. The 3 religions and 9 nations will give out spots to individuals or organizations. Then they'll fight. The 10 winners will receive the glory of the Holy Glorious Ones. Magri Modric looked at everyone. This battle of the Holy Glorious Ones can be said to be a secret. In fact, many organizations and individual spiritualists know about this event. Of course, it's called a secret because the majority of those who know about the Battle of the Holy Glorious Ones are the top organizations and forces, or the top lone wolves. Moreover, almost every time, only those organizations and individuals participate. Those organizations and individuals below the top have no way of knowing about this. Modric had thought that the supernatural organization would know about this. After all, they were so powerful. There was no reason they wouldn't know. But now, it seemed that they were a newly rising organization. It was normal that they didn't know. Plus, the 3 religions and 9 nations hadn't started giving out spots yet. Are there any benefits to getting the holy glorious ones? Glory. Isn't that enough? The supernatural organization will become famous in the spiritual world because of this, Modrich said. Glory? That's all? West lost interest at once. Hey, Qinzhao, Zhang Tianyi said. There's an event in Istanbul next January. Does your supernatural organization want to participate? What event? Do I get paid? Chen Zhao was lying in the sun. The spiritual world's event is actually a martial arts competition. Are you sure you want me to participate? I'm not asking you to participate. It's your supernatural organization. I remember that you have many strong subordinates. Zhang Tianyi didn't want someone who broke the balance to participate in that event. If Chen Zhao participated, it would only become a farce. They're all busy, Chen Zhao said. I'm busy too. Why don't you go and play? I'll pay for the flight and accommodation. Do I need your money? Chen Zhao said straightforwardly. Can't you give me some face? This is also a chance for the supernatural organization to become famous. I don't need it. The supernatural organization doesn't need it either. Chen Zhao was telling the truth. The supernatural organization wasn't famous now, but even so, they were still taken care of by the anti-terrorism security department. If he made a name for himself, then trouble would come one after another. If they were celebrities, the more famous, the better. Fame meant money, but in the spiritual world, fame often meant all kinds of trouble. For example, was Zhang Tianyi famous enough in the spiritual world? Right now, he was basically the top person in the world, the Tao Master, the uncrowned king, and so on. But when some countries or regions encountered trouble, they would think of him first. For example, why didn't the Japanese look for him for the Rock of Death incident? Why did they look for Zhang Tianyi instead? Was he weaker than Zhang Tianyi? Of course, it was because Zhang Tianyi was famous while he was unknown. Chen Zhao didn't think that it would be good to stand out. Making a fortune in silence was Chen Zhao's principle of life. Chapter 1802. Are you really not going to consider it? That activity is pretty interesting. Do you have any tickets? Leave 2 for me. If it's for participation, then forget it. Fuck off. I don't have any tickets. Just be a circus. Fine. Chen Zhao pursed his lips. I'm done. Hanging up, Chen Zhao raised his voice. Portia, get me a few cans of beer. Portia's face darkened. She walked up to Chen Zhao. Boss, I'm not your maid. Oh, you've already worked for me for a month. I haven't given you your salary yet, right? Portia felt that Chen Zhao was too much of a bully. Gritting her teeth, she stared at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao glanced at Portia. Do you have any objections? No. Do you have any other orders, boss? That's good. Go on, you're blocking my sunlight. Chen Zhao waved his hand. Portia really wanted to tear Chen Zhao into pieces. Just then, the butler said, Master, Ms. Demon is calling you. Give me my phone. Portia obediently handed the phone to Chen Zhao. Boss, when are you going to give me my salary? Go away. Don't disturb me. After chasing Portia away, Chen Zhao called Demon's number back. Demon, what's up? Nawat Singh received news that her tribe seems to have been attacked. She's trying to get out of the hospital at all costs. Can you help protect her? Sure. Chen Zhao agreed decisively. I'm going to the hospital. Wait for me. After hanging up, Chen Zhao said to Portia, Portia, I'm going out for a while. Help me take care of Jerlin and Larissa. Okay, boss. My salary, however. Chen Zhao didn't listen to Portia at all. He had already left. Chen Zhao rushed to the hospital. Demon was already helping Nawat Singh get out of the hospital. Nawat Singh's injuries were very serious. She couldn't even stand up. She had to sit in a wheelchair, which was why Demon had called Chen Zhao and asked him to protect her. Nawat Singh looked haggard, although his life was not in danger. But her body was too weak. Chin, you're here. Dalemore had finished the discharge procedures. Seeing Chen Zhao, she immediately went over to greet him. Chun Zhao nodded and turned to look at Navots. Navots, are you okay? Although Navots was in a bad mood, she wouldn't vent her anger. Moreover, Chun Zhao was here to help her. It's all right, but I feel weak, Navot said. I can't do anything about that, Chun Zhao said. You've used too much energy. You can only recover slowly. Navots also understood her current state and nodded slightly. She used Chun Zhao's extraordinary power. She knew very well the price she had to pay for using that power. Normally, it wouldn't be surprising even if he had to pay with his life. Not to mention that he was only lying in bed for half a month. Do your people live in downtown Los Angeles? Knotts shook her head. There are large settlements in the city, but my family's settlement is rather remote. It's in the San Antonio Mountain Forest. Okay, you lead the way. San Antonio Mountain was connected to the LA National Park. It was even larger than downtown Los Angeles, reaching 2,000 square kilometers. It was also very far. The car drove for 2 hours before reaching the entrance of San Antonio Mountain. After that, they couldn't use the car anymore. Navots, how far is it? About 100 kilometers, Navot Singh said. That far? Chun Zhao was surprised. How do your people go back to their families? Helicopter, Not Singh replied. Then I'll fly you in, Chun Zhao said. This was a mountain area. There were no people nearby. Plus, as long as they didn't fly too fast, no radar in space could find Chun Zhao. Dalemore, stay on my back. Chun Zhao carried Dalemore on his back and lifted Navot's wheelchair at the same time. Then he soared into the air. Neither Dalemore nor Navot Singh had ever enjoyed flying like this. Chun Zhao flew a bit too fast. The air whizzed and slapped their faces. Of course, with Chun Zhao's intentional protection, they didn't feel too uncomfortable. Plus, Chun Zhao wasn't very fast either. Dalemore was very envious. After all, he could fly in the sky without any aircraft. She probably didn't even dare to think about it. Chun, how strong do I have to be to fly like you? Don't think about it, Navot said. That's almost impossible. But the truth is right in front of us. Chun can do it. How strong? Chun Zhao said. So I can't give you a standard answer. Actually, it wasn't that Chun Zhao couldn't give this number at all. According to the supernatural organization's Adu's mana value, he would need about 100,000 Adu's mana value. At least, Chun Zhao had his own small world at this stage. At that time, Chun Zhao already had the ability to fly. However, he could only fly freely after compressing his mana into immortal power. But after that, Chun Zhao could no longer calculate the magic value of the money with equipment in the association. Chun Zhao didn't know what his current immortal power would be if it was converted into mana. Of course, one didn't have to have 100,000 mana to have the ability to fly. For example, Gaia, Norma, and Jalanash all had between 500 and 2,000 mana. However, they could all fly because of their special characteristics. Gaia and Norma could purely because of their bloodline. Norma could walk in the air after turning into a nightmare, while Gaia could turn into a fire dragon and soar into the sky. Jalanash, on the other hand, had wind elemental magic. However, her flying ability was the weakest. In the distance, Chun Zhao saw a cluster of buildings in the dense forest more than 10 kilometers away. The building wasn't big. There was a building a few stories tall, surrounded by some single houses. There shouldn't be more than 30 families living here. It wasn't as large as Chun Zhao had thought. However, Chun Zhao realized that he couldn't see anyone. He thought it was because he was too far away, but when he got closer, even Jalanash and Navots could see him. Chun Zhao didn't see anyone. Chapter 1803. Chun Zhao placed Dalemore and Navots on the ground. There wasn't a single person, or rather, not a single living person. There wasn't a single living person in the entire Singh family's residential area. The Singh family's residential area was very small. It was less than 20 hectares in size. It was surrounded by dense forests. In the center was an 8-story building. There were some houses around it, but there were only about 30 households. Chen Zhao pushed Navot's wheelchair. Which way? Chun Zhao asked. Where are they? Where are they? How come there's no one? Navot's was also terrified. The people living here were all her family. There weren't many of them, only about 30 households, and less than 100 people. But every time she came back, she would see them. It was impossible not to see a single person. There's the smell of blood in the building, Qin Zhao said. Let's go in and take a look. Navot's body trembled. She realized that things weren't good. Qin Zhao patted Navot's singer's shoulder and pushed her inside. After entering the building, there were bloodstains on the ground. Navot's expression worsened. She wanted to speak a few times, wanting to go somewhere else first. But just as the words were about to leave his mouth, he swallowed them back. She was afraid, but also wanted to escape. Beside her, Daly Moore's expression was also bad. Just then, there was a knocking sound from the ground. The sound came from afar, but no one was coming. The sound seems to be coming from underground, Qin Zhao said. Is there a secret passage here? I don't know. Navot's shook her head. She indeed didn't know there was a secret passage here. Qin Zhao was also surprised. He didn't know what the ground was made of. His little world couldn't even sense the ground. Knock, knock. The sound traveled to the tiles in front. Then there were continuous knocking sounds. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking sounds were disjointed and muffled. This time, it was more hurried and crisp. It seemed like someone was looking for a weak spot and then pounding on the tiles. Navot's and Daly Moore were surprised, but they weren't afraid. Chun Zhao was here. There was nothing to be afraid of. Navot's had experienced Chun Zhao's power before. She turned around and asked, "What's down there?" "I don't know. I can't sense it." Chun Zhao thought for a moment and didn't say anything else. "Did you find out soon after you lifted the floor tiles?" Qin Zhao went up and crushed the floor tiles. "Wow!" A child's cry of surprise came from below. Chun Zhao looked down and saw a few kids. When the kids saw Chun Zhao, they immediately turned around and ran back into the tunnel. "It's Xan Li." She recognized one of the voices. "Xan Li, I think it's Xan Li." The children hiding in the underground tunnel heard Navot Singh's voice. One of the girls, who was about 15 or 16 years old, carefully poked her head out. "Sister Navot's." Shinli Singh was surprised and overjoyed. She immediately came out of the tunnel. "Come out, it's not the bad guy. It's Sister Knots." 7 or 8 children emerged from the tunnel. They were all younger than Xan Li, ranging from 6 to 12 years old. "Sister Knots, what's wrong?" "I'm fine. Why are you hiding down there? What happened?" "Mom and Dad gathered us here this morning," Shinli Singh said. "Then they hid us down here." Navot's heart sank. This meant that her people probably knew about the attack. They'd also prepared beforehand and hid the young children? Shinli Singh turned to Qin Zhao and said angrily, "Do you know that you crushed the floor tiles and hit my head?" "Yeah, I know," Qin Zhao said, nodding. If he'd known that there were kids down there, he probably wouldn't have used such a violent method. Of course, he'd already done that. Qin Zhao wouldn't deny it. He wasn't hurt anyway. "Do you think I won't curse you?" Qin Zhao turned to look at Navot's. "Can I hit her?" "Shinli, don't be rude to Qin. He's my helper." Him. How strong is he?" Navot's was speechless. "No matter how strong he is, he's definitely stronger than you." "Better than me," Navot Singh said. "Shouldn't we consider looking for your people?" Qin Zhao reminded. Navot Singh's mood had just calmed down when she saw the children of her clan. Now, she became serious again and nodded. "Sister Navot's, I'll push you." The other children followed around. Qin Zhao walked in front. "These children seem to be awakened bloodlines or witches," Daly Moore said. "That's not strange. This should be a special residential area that only accepts spiritualists," Qin Zhao said. "Spells that aren't convenient to use in the outside world can be used here without any restrictions." Ding! The elevator came down and the group entered. Which floor? Chun Zhao asked. 8th floor. Xinli Sing answered first. The elevator reached the 8th floor. As soon as they got out, all the children screamed. Bodies. Dozens of bodies. Most of the corpses were the children's relatives. Clearly, there had been a massacre here. Chun Zhao wasn't used to this. They were spiritualists, but they were actually commoners. Their bodies were piled together. There was a blood-smeared magic array in the middle. Navots covered her mouth. She couldn't hold back her tears anymore. Dalamore's face was also filled with shock. It was also her first time seeing such a bloody scene. Xinli Sing had already charged forward. She dragged a corpse from the pile of corpses and cried out, "Daddy!" But just then, large amounts of blood suddenly gushed out of the pile. The blood flowed into the magic array in an arc. A blood-colored demon popped its head out of the array. Chun Zhao went up and stepped on the demon's head before it could completely show itself. "Go back." "Ah, do you know who I am? Your head didn't shatter." Chun Zhao didn't care who it was. He attached himself and punched the demon's head. Bang! The demon's head was smashed. But the magic array didn't stop. It still summoned the headless demon. This wasn't the end. A second demon popped out, then a third, a fourth. More and more demons were summoned. Chapter 1804. More than a dozen blood demons were displayed before him. When the children saw these blood-colored demons, they were so scared that their faces turned pale. Daily Moore hugged 2 children who were already scared silly. The 2 buried their heads in Daily Moore's chest, not daring to look at the terrifying demons. Chun Zhao tilted his head and looked at the demons. "Knots, do you know what they are?" "They're immortal Balik. Balik means demon in our language. They have indestructible bodies." Knots looked at the headless corpse. "Of course, indestructible doesn't work on you." The Romani language was a small language. In the Romani language, immortal meant indestructible bodies, souls that couldn't be purified and power that couldn't be used up. In the Singh family, immortal Balik was very widespread. Especially the relatives in the settlement, they knew the immortal Balik even better. In the family, immortal Balik was their greatest enemy. Their ancestors had once fought with immortal Balik and successfully killed him after a fierce battle. Chun Zhao twisted off the head of a blood-colored demon. "Their joints aren't as hard as their heads," Chun Zhao said. Not Singh and Delamore rolled their eyes a little. "Is there a difference to you?" On the other hand, Exan Lisingas and the other kids were shocked. As inner disciples, they obviously knew about immortal Balik. However, these terrifying Baliks were like bugs. Chun Zhao broke their necks one by one, or their heads were smashed. It seemed that the legendary immortal Balik wasn't that scary. However, Chun Zhao had to admit that their bodies were indeed very hard. At least, if Chun Zhao didn't use his heavy and high-speed punches, these blood demons could often stand up unharmed. To the weak, their bodies were indeed indestructible. Even armor-piercing bullets from modern weapons probably couldn't penetrate their bodies. Not sighed. In her eyes, these powerful blood demons were so weak. Before Chun Zhao, they couldn't even withstand a single blow. She also knew that Chun Zhao hadn't used his true power. But even so, the power he displayed was already on the level of a crushing suppression. A few minutes later, Chun Zhao killed the last immortal Balik. Chun Zhao didn't use his full power, not even in his normal state. Otherwise, he would have killed them all. Of course, this included the 8-story building. But when Chun Zhao killed the last undying Barak, all the corpses started fusing together. In the end, they merged into a supersized immortal Balik. "Human, you didn't expect me to revive again, did you?" The blood-red demon looked at Chun Zhao proudly. "Yes, I didn't expect that." Chun Zhao nodded. "How are you feeling right now? Fear? Despair? Or regret?" "It's great to be able to kill you again." "You!" Chun Zhao didn't care about the rules and attacked directly. He went up and pressed the gigantic, blood-colored demon to the ground. The floor collapsed in an instant, falling to the next floor. The lower floor collapsed again, layer by layer, and finally fell to the ground. The ground cracked like a spider web. Everyone came to the hole and looked down. They saw that Qin Zhao was holding the head of the super-large immortal barrack. How did it end so quickly? Everyone couldn't believe it. They'd thought that it would be a huge battle, especially Nawat Singh. She thought that Qin Zhao would have to use his true power. She could vaguely feel that the super-large immortal barrack's power was already the same as when she'd borrowed Qin Zhao's power. In the end, Qin Zhao surprised her again. It didn't take much effort to finish off this super-large immortal barrack. Everyone came to the bottom floor. Xinli Shingles looked at Qin Zhao in shock. When they first met, she didn't think that Qin Zhao was strong at all. But now, she finally saw Qin Zhao's power. It was even terrifyingly strong. "Mr. Qin, help me get revenge. I can pay anything, including myself." Xinli Shingles looked at Qin Zhao, her eyes filled with seriousness and sincerity. "If you want to sell yourself to me, you better contact my lawyer and ask if she has a way to bypass the underage protection law." "I'm serious. I'm serious too." Qin Zhao shrugged. "Knots, you have to pay attention to the education of your children. If they only practice magic and don't learn culture, they won't be able to find a job in society. Qin, apart from these children, the others are all dead." Knott's expression was extremely dark. "Do you know who did it?" "Warren, the one who attacked me. He's from the Akuk family. Do you have a grudge against him?" "All the Roma have a grudge against the Akuk family." Knots was angry, but Qin Zhao didn't hear much hatred in her tone. "Why? The Akuk family was once the leader of the Roma. Their family once tried to form a country. Isn't that a good thing? You Roma people have never had a real country and have always lived as nomads. This has also caused you Roma people to bear a lot of stigma. If you build a country, you'll have more living space and the right to speak. The Akuk family wants to use the lives of all the Roma in exchange for a chance for their family to build a country. Do you think such a country has anything to do with the Roma? At that time, apart from the Akuk family, everyone else with Roma blood will die." And then, did the Akuk family fail? Of course. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any Roma in the world. So is Warren going to do the same thing again? No, it's impossible for him to succeed. In the past, the Cook family was the leader of the Roma, so the Cook family could sacrifice the entire Roma as a leader. But now, not only are they not the leader of the Roma, but they are also the enemy of the Roma, so they can no longer use this magic to threaten us. So what does the Akuk family want to do? Take revenge on all the Roma? I don't know what they want, but I think they're definitely plotting something. I don't want to know about the plot. Just tell me where the Akuk family lives and where Warren is. Chapter 1805. Most of the time, conspiracies didn't matter. Qin Zhao wasn't a cop. Nawats and the kids only wanted revenge. Therefore, what they pursued was never the truth. The truth only satisfied curiosity. Revenge, on the other hand, brought pleasure. Unfortunately, Nawats didn't know where the Cook family was either. She didn't even know if it was in North America. "What do you plan to do with these kids?" Qin Zhao asked. "I'll take care of them." "I'll help too," Dailymore said. There were so many kids and a disabled person. Qin Zhao couldn't fly them out directly, unless he tied them all up. Qin Zhao held the end of the rope. But now the kids were panicking and lost. They were very fragile and couldn't take any stimulation. Qin Zhao decided to just walk out. Not Singh asked Qin Zhao to burn down the entire Singh family's residential area, along with the corpses. In the flames, the kids cried heart-wrenchingly. The fire was like the anger in everyone's heart. Only Qin Zhao was calm. In fact, he was calm inside too. When he first saw the corpses, he was indeed angry. But maybe it was because he was an outsider. The dead and the kids had nothing to do with him. So, Chen Zhao realized that his anger seemed to calm down. Of course, it was mainly because Chen Zhao didn't have so many emotions. Chen Zhao didn't have the thought of seeking justice for them or fighting to the death with the murderers. It wasn't that Chen Zhao didn't have a sense of justice, but it wasn't that strong. The path in the forest was very difficult, but Chen Zhao didn't have much of a choice. The kids could make it through a mountain road of almost 100 kilometers, but Chen Zhao couldn't. Even if they ran on the road, it would take them almost a day to run 100 kilometers. Plus, it was on the mountain road. With the kids' skills, it would take them 2 days, even if there were no accidents. After a few hours, the sky was already dark. You guys rest here. I'll go hunting, Chen Zhao said. Dailymore, I'll leave this place to you. Dailymore nodded. Come back quickly. Dailymore looked at the forest and was a bit scared. Chen Zhao flew into the sky. Xian Li and the other kids watched Chen Zhao disappear into the night sky with shining eyes. They were all children who had been exposed to magic, although the duration of exposure was different. However, they all knew that spiritualists that could fly were very rare, and most of them were very powerful. Chen Zhao flew back to get the RV. Chen Zhao made a round trip at night. Chen Zhao only needed a few minutes to cover the 200 kilometers. If Chen Zhao used full speed, he would be even faster. However, if the speed was too fast, the body's heat source reaction would be too strong. It was very likely that the American air defense system would capture it and then attack you with a tomahawk for no reason. Therefore, he only flew at a low speed. The round trip took more than 10 minutes. Chin, where's the prey? Dailymore looked at Chen Zhao's empty hands. Chen Zhao took out the RV. What do you think of this prey? You left just now to get the RV? Dailymore looked at him in surprise. What's the use of this trailer? Get in. I'll carry it and fly out. It's too troublesome to just walk like this. Both Dailymore and Nawat Singh looked at Chen Zhao in shock. You can do that? Why not? Let's all go. Soon the 2 and the 8 kids experienced the feeling of a roller coaster. Chen Zhao supported himself under the RV. The flying speed wasn't fast, just like a normal car. It wasn't very high either. It was only a few dozen meters above the forest. This experience made the kids forget their pain for now. After an hour, they finally reached the forest. Chin, my house is a bit small. Can you let them stay at your house for the next 2 days? Dailymore asked. I'll borrow a big house for my mother tomorrow. I need to do some preparation, cleaning, and decorating. Sure. Chen Zhao nodded and turned to the kids. You can stay at my place, but you can't use magic. Chen Zhao didn't use a heavy tone. However, the kids clearly still respected Chen Zhao. So, they all nodded obediently. The kids in the RV didn't play or laugh. They were all very quiet. Returning to reality, they fell into pain again. Nay, what's? Your parents aren't among them, right? Chen Zhao could only feel her anger, but not much sadness. My parents passed away long ago. Oh, sorry. It's okay. Nay, what's? Didn't take it to heart. What's the future like for these kids? I don't know. No one could answer this question. Send me and Dailymore home first. After sending them home, Chen Zhao drove home. Feilai, have the underlings make dinner. We'll have some special guests. Chen Zhao dialed Feilai's number. What guests? A bunch of kids who just lost their parents. Got it. When Chen Zhao drove into the villa, Feilai was already waiting for him in the garage. Feilai's heart was softer than Chen Zhao's, so she felt sorry for the kids after hearing what had happened. When Chen Zhao brought the kids out of the car, Feilai's heart ached even more. Among the kids, the youngest was only 5 or 6 years old. Feilai went up and carried the kids. Kids, have you eaten? Chen Zhao and Feilai led the kids into the dining room. These children were really hungry. Most of them only ate breakfast and then nothing else. Feilai, on the other hand, was completely a waitress. She handed food to this child or poured drinks for that child. Chun Zhao took some food and walked out of the dining room. All the kids were wolfing down the food. Fei Lai suddenly noticed Xinli Singer's gaze. "Ms. Fei Lai, can you adopt us?" "Huh." Fei Lai was shocked. She didn't have this thought at all. More accurately, she hadn't thought about it at all. "Why do you want me to adopt you?" Fei Lai asked, stunned. Fei Lai suddenly realized that she didn't reject it. However, she had to explain it to Qin Zhao. She had to respect his suggestions and opinions. This wasn't a small matter. Adopting any child was a big deal, let alone a group of kids. Chapter 1806. Qin Zhao was also caught off guard. Adopt children? And 8 at once? To be honest, Qin Zhao and Fei Lai were still kids. It was already hard for them to take care of little Jerlin and Larissa. Adopt 8 more children? Ignoring the troublesome legal procedures. Qin Zhao didn't have to worry about that. Their physical and mental health and futures were all things he had to consider. "Fei Lai, do you want to adopt them?" Qin Zhao asked. I don't know." When Fei Lai said this, it meant that she was tempted. Qin Zhao's head swelled. Adopt children. Adopt 8 children. Fei Lai looked up at Qin Zhao. "What about you?" "As long as you give me a definite answer. Yes or no." Fei Lai gritted her teeth. "I wanna, but I'm scared." "Fine, leave the rest to me." Qin Zhao stood up and walked into the dining room. The children were still wolfing down their food. Only Xinli looked up at Qin Zhao. "Xinli, why do you want Fei Lai and me to adopt you?" Qin Zhao asked. "Because you're powerful. You can help us get revenge. Also, I want to become stronger. Can you represent the other children? Also, where are your grandfathers and grandmothers?" Qin Zhao looked at Xinli Sing. "If they want to adopt you, I won't be able to legally do so. We don't have any blood relatives within 3 generations." Xinli looked at Qin Zhao calmly. "So, as long as you're willing, no one will fight with you. They're like me. They don't have a choice. I need to discuss this with Knots." At the end of the day, they were Knots' relatives, not Qin Zhao's. Moreover, even if Qin Zhao adopted them, it wouldn't be for revenge. It wasn't for revenge, nor was it to train them into killers. Qin Zhao had never thought about adopting them either. Of course, he didn't reject it either. Qin Zhao was someone who didn't have great kindness or evil thoughts. Adopting a child wasn't just about providing food and shelter. He already had 2 little demons at home. Now there were 8 more. Qin Zhao felt his head hurt just thinking about it. "Sister Knots can't teach me magic." "I can't teach them either," Qin Zhao said. "You must have a way to make people stronger," Xinli Sing said with certainty. "Stay here for now. I'll think about your idea." Qin Zhao didn't say anything definite. This wasn't something he and Fei Lai could decide. What the child thought was one thing. What Navat Singer thought was another. "Now what?" "It's me." "Chen, what is it?" "Fei Lai wants to adopt these children." Qin Zhao went straight to the point. On the other end of the line, Navat Singh was silent for a moment. Qin Zhao did not speak either. He waited for Navat's reply. "What about the children?" "Children have this tendency too." Qin Zhao did not say much. "I'm fine," Navat said. "Protect them." Qin Zhao hung up. Navat's intention was similar to Qin Zhao's. He did not take the initiative to object, nor did he take the initiative to agree. Qin Zhao took a deep breath. This seemed to be big trouble. 10 children. 10 children. What have I done? In the night, Fei Lai turned and rubbed Qin Zhao. "Qin, are you asleep?" "No," Qin Zhao replied. "Qin, if you don't want to, I won't force you." "Of course not. I like children. I like our home to be more lively." Qin Zhao pulled Fei Lai into his arms. "We have this condition. Plus, little Jerlin and little Larissa can have more older brothers and sisters. I suddenly think this is a great idea." Actually, Fei Lai also knew that it was because she couldn't have more children, but she still wanted more children. Okay, Qin Zhao could understand Fei Lai. Chen Zhao didn't object. So what if they had a few more children? Anyway, it was just more effort. The next day, early in the morning, Alex glanced at the time. Anger surfaced on her face. She was furious that Chen Zhao would call her at this time. Chin, if you can't give me a satisfactory answer, I'll make you regret it. Feilai and I discussed it. We suddenly want to adopt 8 children. Wait, speak clearly. Alex suddenly became clear-headed. How many did you say? 8. Orphans? Do they have guardians? Age, background, identity. We'll talk about the details in the morning. Alex also felt a bit of a headache. Alex ran over in a hurry. She looked at Chen Zhao and Feilai, who were eating breakfast absent-mindedly. Tell me the situation. What's going on? There are 8 children. Their parents died in a fire yesterday, Chen Zhao said. Feilai and I want to adopt them. It's that simple. I need their detailed information and identification. I'll have someone send it over later, Chen Zhao said. Alex, will the adoption process be difficult? Feilai asked. Do they have any immediate family members? No. Chen Zhao shook his head. Then it shouldn't be a problem. Will someone come out to fight for custody? If there's no immediate family within the second generation, the court and the Minor Protection Association will determine if there are collateral relatives within the second generation, as well as if they're willing to raise the child and if the child is willing to follow them. If any of them are unwilling, the child will be sent to an orphanage. Then what do we need to do? Nothing much. You just need to prove that you have the income and that your family can raise the child. I'll make the proof for you. Of course, Feilai is a member of the Coastal Rescue Team, so it's even better. If you're worried about other problems, you can donate some money to a charity, preferably one for minors. Actually, in America, adopting children was a very utilitarian thing. Of course, from a normal perspective, it was a win-win situation. The orphanage would receive donations to lighten the burden. The adopter would get the child, and the child would get a family and parents. So, in principle, the wealthier the adopter, the better. I'll leave this to you, Chen Zhao said. A while later, Not Singh and Dellimore came, bringing the children's information. Alex met the 8 children and learned about their actual situation. Chen Zhao and Feilai also learned all the children's names. Chapter 1807. President will go back tomorrow. West called Chen Zhao. Looks like you didn't find the giant, Chen Zhao said in a mocking tone. If they found the giant, they would definitely send him a message. If they were to come back so suddenly, they must have failed. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't blame them. No one could be 100% sure that they would be able to find the legendary Nordic giants. West's reply was rather boring. President, we actually found the giant and completed the mission. Found it? And completed the mission? Chen Zhao asked in disbelief, his eyes wide. Yes, we found it. West was getting more and more bored. Since you found it, why are you in such a bad mood? You don't seem happy at all. You don't even seem excited. I can't be excited, West said. West said, this mission isn't difficult at all. It's much easier than besieging the Turin. Are the legendary Norse giants weak? No, the real Norse giants should be very strong. The real Norse giants? Isn't the giant the mission was referring to? It's a 2-headed giant with a bit of Norse giant blood in him. He's huge, savage, and bloodthirsty. All of us were fully prepared, but we stepped on a landmine that Klaus had prepared beforehand, and one of our legs was blown off. Chen Zhao was speechless too. One leg exploded by a landmine. Either Klaus had set some super powerful landmine or the giant was really weak. No wonder West was so depressed. He'd rushed over excitedly, but he'd encountered such a thing. Aren't you still in Norway? It's very close to the North Sea. Aren't you going to search for the North Sea monster? The North Sea monster has already been captured alive. It's indeed a shockingly huge monster, over 1,000 tons. I feel like it doesn't live up to its name. Yeah, how boring. Whatever. No matter what, completing a mission is something to be happy about, Chen Zhao comforted. Did you inform Wangxi? Yes, she's in L.A. now. 3 missions, $200 million. In terms of investment, it wasn't a loss. In fact, it was a huge profit. Of course, this was only applicable to a capable team or individual. If it was the kind of people or teams that did not have the strength, they would probably just be throwing their lives away. Chen Zhao was still on the phone with West. Suddenly, someone tugged at his pants. Chen Zhao looked down and saw a girl tugging at his pants. Mara, what's wrong? I'm not Mara, I'm Sindora, the girl said in a trembling voice. Can I go to the beach to play? Uncle. Okay. Chen Zhao realized that he didn't remember the girl's name. To be more precise, he was confused. Xian Li, come here. Chen Zhao waved his hand. Xian Li walked up to him. Mr. Chen, what can I do for you? Since you're going to be adopted, you can call me uncle from now on. Of course, if you want to call me dad, I won't object. Chen Zhao would not force them to change their surnames and recognize a dad, especially Xin Sing. She was already 15 years old, going to be 16 soon. If she called him uncle, Chen Zhao would feel like he was at a disadvantage. Of course, calling him brother wasn't appropriate either. Sure, uncle, Xin Sing replied straightforwardly. Tell me each child's name and age, Chen Zhao said. I can't remember. The one who ran to you is Sindora. She's the youngest among us, 5 years old, Xin Sing said patiently. Then she pointed at each child and explained, Mara is that one. She's 6. She's Sindora's cousin. That one is Didala, 12 female. Crow, 11 male. Farintia, 8 female. Penance, 7 male. But Illich, 7 female. Mara, 6 female. Sindora, 5 female. Including Xin Sing, who was 15, there were 15 children in total. They were all from the same family. They all had the same surname. Okay, I got it. After lunch, follow me out to buy some daily necessities and clothes for you. Just then, Portia came, but she suddenly realized that the entire villa was filled with children. Boss, where did you kidnap so many children? They're all my children, starting from today, Chen Zhao said. Huh. Portia wouldn't believe it. Smiling, Chen Zhao looked at Portia. I've decided to give you a raise. Really, boss? Portia was overjoyed. Of course. Chen Zhao was full of smiles. Looking at Chen Zhao's smile, Portia suddenly realized that something was wrong. Boss, they're really your children? Of course. Chen Zhao nodded. Portia finally understood why Chen Zhao wanted to raise her salary. Boss, I want to quit. Think about the money you owe me. Then you won't quit like this. Portia wanted to cry. If these children were really Chen Zhao's children, then she would undoubtedly be the one with the heaviest burden. Boss, how much will you give me? $1 is a form of encouragement for you. Let's go to the supermarket first. Chen Zhao patted Portia's shoulder. Portia wanted to cry as she drove. She hated driving an RV. She hated children. She hated her boss. The children started making a fuss in the RV, especially the younger children. They did not have too much hatred in their hearts. Jerlin and Larissa were the happiest. They suddenly had so many friends in one night. Portia cursed Chen Zhao, but she didn't know that Chen Zhao was in even more pain. Chen Zhao realized that the 10 children piled together was like an endless hell. Thankfully, Xian Li knew how to help Chen Zhao share the burden. Moreover, she had quite a bit of prestige among the children. They finally reached the supermarket. Chen Zhao and Portia each carried Jerlin and Larissa. The other children scattered like a pack of wolves. Come back. Don't run around, Xian Li shouted. Don't make trouble for Uncle. Everyone, push a shopping cart, Chen Zhao said. Pick your favorite toothbrush, towel, bath towel, 2 of your favorite toys, 2 of your favorite snacks, and 3 sets of pajamas. Also, don't disappear from my sight or run around, Chen Zhao added. Chapter 1808. Children entering a supermarket is a disaster. Not only was it a disaster for his parents, it was also a disaster for the supermarket. The only thing missing from every supermarket was a sign at the entrance that said children and dogs were not allowed to enter. 10 children was almost equivalent to the end of the world. All right, Exanly was only half one. However, older children had their own needs. Uncle, I need some skincare products and cosmetics. The total can't exceed $1,000, Chen Zhao said. Since there were so many children, they couldn't indulge everyone. Chen Zhao was rich, but that didn't mean he could let his kids squander it. Chen Zhao could afford it, but he couldn't let them develop this habit. Since he had adopted them, he had to be responsible for their future. Even in the future, they would have a share of his assets. What Chen Zhao needed to do first was not feed their property to the dogs. If they really raised a prodigal, Chen Zhao would at most make sure they didn't starve to death. From now on, Chen Zhao had to control their spending. Not only them, but little Jerlin and little Larissa's spending also needed to be controlled. Of course, even if it was controlled, their consumption was still much higher than that of their peers from ordinary families. Portia, go to the counter over there and buy 10 cell phones. 10. Does little Larissa want one too? Yes, treat everyone equally. Adopt a child who is not related to you by blood. What was the most difficult part? It was to treat them equally. No matter how one treated their own children, they should give them the same affection and gifts. You can't just say that you don't want to buy gifts for your children. Conversely, a child's mentality is very fragile. Chen Zhao didn't want to leave a shadow in the child's mind. Of course, adopting other children would also be beneficial to little Jerlin and little Larissa. They had role models, and their brothers and sisters were their role models. After leaving the supermarket, Chen Zhao could only take the things that everyone else had bought in the supermarket. Even Portia couldn't carry them all. There were simply too many things. Boss, where are we going next? To the Baron's mansion. The whole family went to the Baron's mansion in a grandiose manner. When Zola saw that Chen Zhao had brought so many kids here, she felt a chill run down her spine. Similarly, he was startled. Zola, these are my children. I adopted them. Zola's mouth was wide open, her face full of shock. Of course, she would not say anything unpleasant in front of the children. However, she couldn't imagine what it was like to adopt so many children. Mentality. Chen Zhao was about to explode. But what could he do? Were they going to tell the kids that they had been refunded? So be it. He couldn't let the children's mentality explode, right? Today was only the first day. There was still a long way to go. Even if Fei Lai wanted a refund, Chen Zhao wouldn't agree. Do you have enough designers here? Design 3 outfits for each of them. Chen Zhao couldn't let the 3 pillars of the Baroness be responsible for so many children's clothes. If that was the case, it would be looking down on them too much. The 3 of them were on good terms with Chen Zhao, so Chen Zhao had to give them face. Zola didn't hold back and called over a dozen designers. Baroness was such a big brand. Of course, it wouldn't only have 2 or 3 kittens. Apart from the 3 pillars, there were dozens of ordinary designers and even more designers' assistants. To Zola, dozens of outfits were less than an hour's worth of transactions. Chun Zhao also asked a designer to design 2 outfits for Portia. Chun Zhao and Zola went to the office to drink coffee. Chen, I really don't understand why you suddenly want to adopt children. It's not me. It's Fei Lai who wants more children. Then she can have them herself. She can't. There's something wrong with her body. Then little Larissa. She didn't get pregnant through normal means. Chen Zhao didn't say it clearly. Zola would fill in the blanks herself. To be honest, Zola said emotionally, I really admire your courage. After all, they had adopted 8 children and 2 of their own. That was 10 children. As someone who had been through it, Zola knew how difficult it was. It wasn't a monetary investment. Both she and Chen Zhao had enough money, not to mention raising 10 children. Even if it was 100 children, they could still afford it. What they really paid was emotional investment and handling chores. The older children were rebellious, while the younger ones were dependent. Qin Zhao didn't dare to say that he could raise them all into talents. However, he was confident that he wouldn't turn them into naughty children. It was already evening when Chen Zhao returned home. Portia realized that there was no one in the house. But dinner was ready. Portia was completely speechless. As expected, this place was haunted. Fei Lai started eating as soon as she came back. A few girls surrounded Fei Lai and chatted with her. Qin Zhao brought the boy to play on the beach. Other than Qin Zhao, there were only 11-year-old Kilo and 7-year-old Binance in the house. Kilo was a bit cowardly and introverted. Binance was like a kid and was very active. Kilo, what element are you in? Uncle, I'm strength enhancing, Kilo answered with his head lowered. Chen Zhao was speechless at Kilo's magic. Usually, spiritualists with strength-enhancing spells were very outgoing. Even Chen Zhao, who was usually cheerful, was actually a hot-tempered person. However, Kilo was actually a strength-enhancing element despite his introverted personality. Uncle, I'm elemental water type. Look at my magic. Binance showed Qin Zhao happily. Binance only knew 2 very weak water-type spells. One was Water Ball, and the other was Water Arrow. Impressive. Chen Zhao patted Binance's head. Kilo hesitated for a while and looked up at Chen Zhao. Uncle, you're also strength-enhancing, right? Yes. Chen Zhao nodded. Then can you teach me how to become stronger? Training your body is the most important thing for you. If you want to use your power to the extreme, you must first be able to withstand it. If you can't even withstand your own power, it's useless no matter how strong your magic is. Then, how can I become as strong as you, Uncle? Both being strength-enhancing, the battle yesterday had left a deep impression on Kilo. He never knew that strength-enhancing spells could be so powerful. Just like I said before, keep training. I'll arrange a training schedule for you tomorrow. Perfect. I'll introduce you to a friend. King Kong, come out. /35 9 Heavens, Divine King. Chapter 1809. King Kong usually went crazy in Zhuoma National Park. He rarely came back today. The new kids hadn't even seen King Kong yet. Of course, it wasn't just King Kong. They were a family now. Then, from now on, he would meet them one after another. For example, the underlings, the 3-headed dog, the Hydra, and even Amon. When Kilo and Tenants saw King Kong, they were shocked at first. At first, he was shocked, but it quickly turned into a pleasant surprise. He was a child to begin with, and he was also a spiritualist. They were much braver than normal people. This gorilla is also a strength type, Qin Zhao said. You can practice with him. Kilo was still a kid, but if he used magic, his strength would increase to 3 times that of a normal person. So, he wasn't afraid of King Kong at all. He was even eager to try. He wanted to see how strong the gorilla was. However, he was introverted and didn't dare to tell Qin Zhao. King Kong let little Kilo try. Qin Zhao only let Kilo try. He didn't let King Kong punch. How strong was King Kong? 30 to 40 tons of strength. If he didn't control his strength, Kilo would be gone. Kilo would be gone. As someone who'd been through this, Qin Zhao knew what 30 to 40 tons of strength meant. A human's body structure was stable and could withstand a lot of potential energy. It was about 4 times their body weight. But once the potential energy exceeded 4 times, the human body would be injured. If it exceeded 10 times, the human body would fall apart. If it exceeded 100 times, it would explode. For example, with Qin Zhao's current strength, if he didn't control it and hit a person, the person would turn into mist. Kilo walked up confidently and punched King Kong's stomach. In the end, King Kong's skin didn't even sink in, let alone injure him. After playing on the beach for a while, Qin Zhao brought Kilo and Tenants back up. At night, Qin Zhao hugged Fei Lai to sleep. Fei Lai couldn't sleep. Qin, what about their studies? We can't just send them to school, right? Let them take a semester off, Qin Zhao said. Next semester, send them to school in Mountain Town. It's close to Mirror Lake, and we're familiar with Mountain Town. If anything happens, we'll know immediately and solve it. Feilai thought for a moment and nodded. That's good too. Jin, can you do it alone? No problem. Even if he was tired, he still had Portia and Exenli to share the burden. Chen Zhao didn't feel like he was dying. Other than the occasional mental fatigue, there were no other problems. The next day, Portia came with a tired expression. The only thing that could make up for her exhaustion was Chen Zhao's raise. Her weekly salary had been $2,500, but Chen Zhao increased it to $3,500. Her salary was indeed very high. It could even be said that she was now a high-income person. Moreover, this was the after-tax income. However, whenever Portia thought of the huge debt she owed, she felt stifled. Just for those luxuries that she had only used a few times. How could he have been so crazy back then? Chen Zhao must have drugged her. No matter what, I can't go on a shopping spree like that again. Just then his phone rang. It was West calling. Guild leader, we've already returned to the headquarters. Oh, did you take the plane for the whole night? Then I'll go there later. Chen Zhao planned to give them time to rest. After all, they must be very tired after taking the plane for the whole night. I'm meeting with Wenk Sieg at 3 in the afternoon. Okay, I'll be there before 3. After hanging up, Chen Zhao looked at Portia. Portia, help me buy an MPV. Oh, go. Now, what do you think? How much? Less than $200,000. I need a lot of space and safety. Okay, Portia was speechless at Chen Zhao's intermittent impatience. However, she was also envious of Chen Zhao's wealth. He didn't need to think much about buying a car. $200,000 was already a super luxury car. It was the same even for an MPV. Portia could roughly understand Chen Zhao's needs. Chen Zhao definitely didn't want to drive an RV every time he took a kid out. That RV was indeed too flashy. Boss, where are you going today? The company. The place last time? Yes. Chen Zhao nodded. You don't need to go. Oh, help me get a few computers and a few tablets in the afternoon. Got it, boss. Damn capitalists, Portia thought to herself. Portia's work efficiency was very high. In just 2 hours, she drove the new car back. The Mercedes-Benz X211 MPV had a huge interior and could seat 12 people. It also had the same anti-collision level as a school bus. All the performance parameters indicated that it was expensive. The cost plus the various fees had exceeded Chen Zhao's original limit. However, Chen Zhao didn't blame Portia. After lunch, Chen Zhao called the kids into the car. Chen Zhao planned to take them to the supernatural organization. They were spiritualists anyway, so it didn't matter if they found out about the organization's secret. The 2 SUVs were very stable. Chen Zhao had never driven such a stable car before, apart from the lowly supercars. When they arrived at the headquarters, Aduz, who was guarding the door, found it strange. He had never seen a car before, so he stopped Chen Zhao's car outside. Only when Chen Zhao rolled down the window did Aduz realize that Chen Zhao had come. After parking the car, Chen Zhao brought the kids into the headquarters. President West was in the hall. When he saw Chen Zhao bring the kids in, he was stunned. They are my kids. I just adopted them, Chen Zhao said. West was surprised, but he didn't ask. You can move around freely, but don't go to places with obvious danger signs. The headquarters wasn't very big, but there were still some dangerous areas. For example, dungeons, evil spirit dens, or places where demons slept. These places were all dangerous. Of course, there was also Chen Zhao's electric shock lab. It was also the most dangerous place. Tell me, what happened in the Norwegian forest this time? West didn't hide anything. Then he began to talk about their encounter. No, they hadn't encountered any dangerous battles at all. When Chen Zhao heard that the giants would appear in lightning, he couldn't help but be surprised. /35_ 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 1810. It's some kind of image, Wes said. It should be a remnant from the past. It witnesses the true giant's existence at a certain time, but it only appears at the moment of lightning. Chun Zhao and Wes stood by the window and watched the children running outside. To these children, everything here was very novel. Of course, they were spiritualists, so they didn't find it unacceptable. Just then, a sports car drove in. Wenk Sieg was here. Chun Zhao and West walked out of the headquarters to welcome her. Ms. Wenk. Mr. Chun, hello. Mr. West, hello. West handed a heroic spirit notebook to Wenk Sieg. Ms. Wenk, this is the Scarlet Mission, the Nordic Giants battle record. Thank you. Wenk Sieg was very satisfied. She didn't care about the difficulty of the mission. She only needed the results. The supernatural organization didn't disappoint her. Which one will you choose for the second Scarlet Mission? Wenk Sieg asked. I'm still considering. Chun Zhao said perfunctorily. The first 3 missions were the Rock of Slaughter, the Nordic Giant, and the North Sea Monster. Now, the Rock of Slaughter mission was completely useless, and the North Sea Monster had been taken. They'd only completed the Nordic Giant mission. So, they had to choose the remaining 2 missions again. But, to Wenk Sieg, completing 1 Scarlet mission in 2 months was already very satisfying. She could answer to the Hunters Guild. At the same time, her teacher would have an explanation. Of course, this also made her more confident in the supernatural organization. By the way, does the Hunters Guild accept intelligence missions? Chun Zhao asked. Intelligence? We don't accept such missions, but I can ask someone for you, Wenk Sieg said readily. As an organization that had existed for 200 or 300 years, they obviously had their own intelligence network. It wasn't just limited to North America, but the entire world. This was something the supernatural organization couldn't even catch up to. The supernatural organization was very powerful, but like most supernatural organizations, they rose quickly, but it was hard to say if they could last for 2 generations. Building a complete intelligence organization wasn't something the supernatural organization could afford right now. Most of the information that the supernatural organization could get now was from Los Angeles. The ability to obtain information beyond this range was very weak. The information he had was obtained from other people or organizations. Otherwise, they would have to spend money to buy it. Basically, they could only get second-hand or even third-hand information. Of course, in most cases, these sources of information were basically enough. After all, the supernatural organization was a regional organization, nor did he have any thoughts of maintaining world peace. Furthermore, the investment required to establish a complete intelligence department was simply too great. This wasn't something that could be done with a few $100,000 or even a few $1,000,000. Think about it. The American government invests billions of dollars every year in order to gather intelligence from all over the world. In the past few decades, hundreds of billions of dollars have been spent to maintain this intelligence system. From this point alone, it should be known that intelligence was not something that ordinary people could play with. Mr. Chin, what information do you want? All the information about the Roma, a Kuk family. Wenk Sieg looked surprised. What? Do you know the Roma, a Kuk family? How could I not know? Wenk Sieg smiled bitterly. In the past year, there's only one person left in the Akuk family. You can say that he caused a huge commotion in the entire spiritual world. Only one person left. Chen Zhao couldn't help but be confused. He looked at Wenk Sieg. There's only one person left in the Akuk family? Yes, Warren Akuk. He's ranked 8th on the top 10 wanted criminals in the spiritual world. Wenk Sieg said with a bitter smile. In the past year, he killed more than 300 people. Most of them were spiritualists, and they were all Roma. The whole world is after him now. Wenk Sieg looked at Chun Zhao. Mr. Chin, do you have a grudge against him? I guess we're mortal enemies now, Qin Zhao said with a shrug. Wang Xig looked at Chen Zhao in confusion. Qin Zhao's tone was rather relaxed. There was no hatred or anger on his face either. However, he said it as if it was only natural. I'll do my best to help you investigate this Warren-a-Cuck, Wang Xig said. West had guessed a little. The children Qin Zhao had brought were clearly Roma. Warren-a-Cuck also had a huge grudge against the Roma. So, the children's relatives must have been killed by Warren-a-Cuck. So, Chen Zhao would naturally bear this grudge. Xian Li Xing suddenly regretted letting Chen Zhao and Fei Lai adopt her. Little Jerlin and little Larissa were two complete little devils, especially little Larissa, who was the youngest. Sis! Little Larissa tugged at Xian Li Xing's hair. Jerlin, on the other hand, was running around in the headquarters. Just then, a girl about her age came over. Risa walked over with her hands in her pockets, studying Xian Li Xing up and down. You're the president's adopted daughter? Risa's tone was somewhat provocative. Xian Li Xing looked at Risa. You are. I'm the president's subordinate, Risa said, extending her hand. Let's get to know each other. I'm Risa. Xian Li had just extended her hand when she suddenly felt a chill. Her arm was almost frozen. Xian Li Xing hurriedly stepped back. What are you doing? Risa snickered. Nothing. I just want to tell you that you're very weak. Xian Li Xing stared at Risa angrily. Are you going to fight me? Risa lifted her right arm and pointed to the left. Suddenly, a powerful current shot out from her palm. A hole appeared in a tree with a diameter of 70 to 80 centimeters a dozen meters away. Xian Li Xing was shocked. The girl seemed to be 1 or 2 years younger than her, but her magic was so powerful. Suddenly, Risa felt a chill behind her. Looking back, she realized that Chen Zhao was already standing behind her. Hi, President. Are you bullying Xian Li? No way. Risa hurriedly waved her hands. I'm just showing her my magic. Chen Zhao looked up at Xian Li Xing. Xian Li hesitated for a moment and then shook her head. No, she didn't bully me. She was a proud person. She didn't need someone to back her up right now. /35 Anusar, Divine Emperor of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 1811. On a small island in the Atlantic Ocean. The people of this island lived a secluded life. But now, this island was engulfed in flames under the night sky. Death spread amidst the blood and flames. The Edith residential district had completely fallen. The Edith family was the most populous family among the Roma people. Inside the raging flames, Warren-a-Cuck stood in the middle with both arms raised, chanting an incantation that was hard to understand. In front of Walloon was a corpse. The chest of the corpse was embedded with several pillar-shaped crystals. As he chanted the last part of the incantation, a mass of black smoke spread out from the flames around him. Then, the black smoke surged into the corpse in front of Warren. The crystals on the corpse's chest became darker and darker, finally turning completely black. Southern Pillar King, welcome back to the world. The corpse moved a bit. The fatal wounds on its body also quickly healed. He stood up. Warren knelt on one knee. Southern Pillar King, sir, I am Warren-a-Cuck. Your humble servant, the Southern Pillar King, was admiring his own body, ignoring Warren's actions. A Cuck? You are the descendant of the Middle King? Yes, Southern Pillar King, sir. 5 kings. How many have you awakened? The Southern Pillar King asked. You are the 3rd, Walloon said respectfully. Oh, who are the first 2? The Southern Pillar King looked at Warren and asked. It's me. Within the flickering flames, 2 figures slowly walked over, a man and a woman. The woman had a head of red hair and a slender body. There was a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. Her attire was extremely simple, just a loose shirt paired with a pair of tight jeans and a pair of sunglasses hanging in front of her chest. She looked like an ordinary fashionable beauty. The other person had his hands behind his back, looking rather old with a head full of silver hair. He was half a body length shorter than the woman next to him. His gaze was dim and lifeless, as if he was an old man with one foot in the grave. Sean! Bayan! The southern Pillar King's eyes glowed. The red-haired woman was the eastern Endless Pillar King, Sean. The other old man was the northern Shadow Pillar King, Bayan. Zoran, I trust you have been well since we last met. Sean's face was as beautiful as a peach blossom. Byron nodded slightly toward Zoran and greeted him coldly. Walloon stood aside obediently. He was facing the legendary creator of the Roma, 3 of the 5 great gods. At the same time, they were also the ancestors of the 5 great Roma families, Akak, Singas, Edith, Vaiku, and Pomes. What are your requirements for waking me up? Zoran asked. Byron and Sean also looked at Warren. They also didn't know what Warren's goal was. Fight for him? Every single one of them possessed unparalleled magical power. Moreover, they did not coexist harmoniously. If 3 of them were summoned, it was very likely that they would fight amongst themselves. Instead, its functions were weakened. Walloon lowered his head humbly and looked at the 3D Pillar King calmly. 3 Pillar Kings, the current Roma people have already forgotten their traditions, your greatness, and our glory. Therefore, this lowly servant has no other requirements. Please restore the glory of the Roma people, Walloon said, respectfully. I don't know what tradition or glory. Just tell me your requirements. Power, wealth, or women? Please awaken our king, the great Pillar King Quemeles, Walloon said. Do you know what needs to be done to awaken the great Pillar King Quemeles? Zoran looked at Walloon with a serious expression. Yes, I do, Walloon nodded. Warren nodded. We need the 4 Pillar Monarchs to appear. At the same time, we need the 4 of you to work together. Without your cooperation, we won't be able to awaken the great Pillar Monarch, His Majesty Quemeles. At the same time, I need a vessel. Sean stared at Walloon. Has your Akuk family's vessel been prepared? Yes, I am that vessel. Warren opened his shirt, and the 3 Pillar Kings saw that Warren's chest was pierced by a few crystals. The 3 Pillar Kings frowned. Sean said, You should know that as a vessel, your consciousness will be erased. Are you sure you want to do this? I'm the only one left in the Akuk family, and for the sake of my family's unfulfilled wish, I have no regrets. All right, you are our awakener. We will fulfill one of your wishes before the vessel is destroyed. This is a fair trade. We have no other choice, Zoran said. However, you still have to awaken the Western Pillar King, Erewhon. I've already made the preparations. I've also scouted out the Vrykle family's residential area. Zoran looked around. He was currently in a strange mood, because the Edith family was his kin, his descendants. But now they had to die to awaken him. But he was awakened by the slayer of his kin. But even he couldn't go against Walloon, who awakened him. Walloon could ask him to do anything at all. Of course, there was only one thing. The Romani people were all about fair trade. Even he couldn't go against the principle of trade. If there was anyone who could go against the principle of trade, it would be the great Pillar King Quemeles, because he was the one who made the rules of trade. The great Pillar King Quemeles was also their master. The 4 Pillar Kings were Quemeles's 4 vice kings. According to the legends, they created the world and were the creators of the world. In reality, they didn't create anything. They weren't even the first generation of Roma people. However, there were no more Roma who were stronger than them before or after them. They used their power to rule over the Roma people, and each created 5 major Roma clans, all of which survived to this day. Naturally, Walloon didn't kill all the clans of the 3 Pillar Kings. The ones he killed were the blood relatives of the 3 clans, the awakened ones. There were even more Roma, people who hadn't awakened, who didn't live in the residential area. Walloon left with the 3 Pillar Kings. At that moment, Sean walked up to Walloon. Her slender figure was even taller than Sean. She leaned down and whispered into Walloon's ear. Walloon, what is your real plan? Won't you tell me? Sean's tone was filled with temptation. Walloon calmly looked at Sean. Great Eastern Pillar King, my goal has been revealed. I didn't hide anything. I want to resurrect the great Pillar King Quemeles. Don't lie to me. I can see the ambition in your eyes, Sean said with a smile. My ambition is to bring back the glory of the Roma people. Is that true? Of course, Walloon nodded and said with a serious tone. Then do you dare to let me conduct a soul interrogation on you? Yes, as long as my ancestor's dream is fulfilled, I am willing to hand over my soul to Great Eastern Pillar King. Chapter 1812. Dalymore noticed that Nawat Singh's face had turned extremely ugly after the call. Knots, what happened? That Warren, that damn Warren, he slaughtered another family settlement, the Pomies family, Knott said. Nawat said, and they also stole the Pomies family's divine artifact. Warren attacked you and the Singer family settlement and stole the earring called Mend. Now he attacked the Pomies family and stole their divine gear. Does that mean that Warren's targets are the families that possess divine gear? Dalymore asked. That's right. What other families have artifacts? Dalymore asked. The Edith family and the Vrykle family, Knott said. Do you know where they live? Dalymore asked. I know the Edith family. They live on an island in the Atlantic. I know them and have been to their settlement before, Knott said. But I don't know anyone from the Vrykle family. They also live in seclusion and rarely have contact with the outside world. There is also the Cook family where Warren is from. But since Warren is from the Cook family, then the artifact of the Cook family must have fallen into his hands. What's the origin of these artifacts? What's their use? Actually, the 5 artifacts were made by the Cook family. What? The 5 artifacts belong to the Cook family? No, they're just contractors, Knott said. Actually, the materials needed for the 5 divine artifacts were shared by the 5 families. So, when the divine artifacts were created, each family received one. Nawat Singh said. Knott paused and said, the origin of the 5 artifacts is very ancient, more than 2,000 years old. After the 5 Pillar Kings disappeared, the Roma lost their protection. At that time, the Roma had their own religion, so they wouldn't believe in other religions. So, they were naturally regarded as heretics. Then, they were constantly hunted and slaughtered. In order to stabilize the people, after a discussion, the 5 families jointly made 5 artifacts to protect the entire race. The 5 artifacts are Mend, Guidance, Fearless, Holy Spirit, and Order. So, what are the specific uses of these 5 artifacts? Dalymore asked. In my hands, Mend was used to extend the duration of continuous magic, Knott said. The more powerful the person using Mend, the more powerful the effect. The artifact of the Edith family is Fearless, which can be immune to all curses and mind magic. Of course, this is what I know. I don't know the effects of Guidance, Holy Spirit, and Order. I only know that Guidance is in the hands of the Pomies family, Holy Spirit is in the hands of the Vrykle family, and Order is in the hands of the Cook family. So, Warren's current goal is the artifacts in the hands of the Edith family and the Vrykle family. Nawat nodded, but he felt something was wrong. The ancestor of Mend had taken away from his hands. But Warren still attacked the settlement of the Singh family. If it was just for the artifacts of the families, he didn't seem to need to do so. Don't you know the people of the Edith family? Inform them now. At least let them be prepared, so that the Edith family is not defenseless. Yes. Knott nodded, and immediately called the friend of the Edith family. Hello, Knott, what's up? Do you know about the Pomies family? Pomies family? What happened to their family? And Pomies asked in confusion. The Pomies family settlement was slaughtered by the madman of the Cook family. Not only the Pomies family, but even the Singh family's settlement was slaughtered. I was also attacked, and Mend was taken away by him. What? When did that happen? Edith was shocked. Just a few days ago. Nawat said solemnly, You better send a message to your family. Walloon's target is likely the divine artifact of the 5 families. His next target is likely to be your Edith family or Vrykul family. I understand. I'll call the family right now. Edith hung up and called the family leader. But after waiting for a long time, the call didn't go through. The phone kept dialing. Edith's heart became heavy. She changed to another family member's number, but the call still didn't go through. She changed to another one, but the result was still the same. No one answered. This made Ames Edith have a bad premonition. Amy Edith suddenly realized that there was a piece of news on TV. The news that was being broadcasted was about Edith Island. When the International Ocean Research ship passed by the Edith Island, they found that the island was on fire, so they landed on the island. They found that the residents of the island were slaughtered. No one survived. Strange symbols were left at the scene, like some kind of cult symbol or ritual. Edith sat on the ground. Her whole body seemed to be drained of energy. Warren! Warren! Edith roared. Not Singh's report was too late. The Edith family had already been attacked and destroyed. It was different from Not Singh. Nawat Singh had no relatives in the Singh family settlement. At least, there were no close relatives. But Edith still had a lot of family on the island. His father, his brother, his grandmother, and his grandfather. At this moment, Nawat Singh called again. You. Did you see the news on the TV? Why did you only inform me now? Why didn't you inform me earlier? Edith roared uncontrollably. Not Singh was silent. This was indeed her dereliction of duty. She hadn't thought of Warren's plan beforehand. She only thought of this possibility when the Pomies family suffered the same fate. Do you know where the Vrykul family settlement is? Warren's target is probably the Vrykul family. Edith was silent for a moment. Then he said, in Minneapolis. Suddenly, Edith remembered. I'm going to kill Warren. I'm going to kill him. Chapter 1813. Shinli, hurry up and help. Don't play with your phone, Portia shrieked. Boss, they're your kids. You should take responsibility. What could Qin Zhao do? He had 2 big demons, little Jerlin and little Larissa, in his arms. For dog, leashes hung on his body. He was holding Sindora, Mara, Coilage, and Binance. Apart from little Jerlin and little Larissa, the 4 of them were the youngest of the 4. Other than Binance, the other 3 were all girls. But their mischievous personalities were no less than boys. Chun Zhao's expression was lifeless. Xian Li held her phone and looked left and right in the airport. Uncle, over there. Xian Li had already seen Nawat Singh's figure. Don't run any more, or I'll get angry, Portia shouted. Sister Nawat, we're here, Shinli shouted, raising her hands. Not Singh and Edith also saw them. Aim narrowed her eyes and looked at Chun Zhao's group. Portia was clearly an ordinary person. Chun Zhao had an unusual aura, but it was too weak. It didn't feel very strong. Also, what's with the kids? The person actually had 2 kids in his arms. Is he a babysitter? Why did he bring the kids here? Qin, you're here. Nawat walked up to Qin Zhao. Why did you bring the kids? I had no choice. There's no one at home to take care of them, so I could only bring them. Qin Zhao shrugged. They shouldn't come, Nawat said. There's no shouldn't. Qin Zhao put little Larissa into Nawat's arms. Do me a favor. Nawat looked at the time bomb in her arms, her expression very awkward. Change little Larissa's diaper. Me. I don't know how. Learn. You'll need it in the future. Qin Zhao glanced at Aim beside him. Are you Nawat's boyfriend? No, I'm Aim Edith from the Edith family. On the surface, Aim Edith was still polite, but when he looked at Nawat Singh from the corner of his eyes, he was already furious. What kind of people were they? Is this the helper Nawat Singh found? She couldn't have pulled it from the streets, could she? Boss, I want a raise. Otherwise, I'll quit, Portia complained. If you talk about a raise again, I'll deduct your salary. Chen Zhao pulled little Glinsaporia into his arms. Uncle, I want to drink Coke. Looking at Chen Zhao, Binance tugged at Chen Zhao's shirt. Chen Zhao searched around and found a credit card. Do you know how to use it? Binance shook his head. Chen Zhao searched again. He didn't seem to have any cash on him. Portia, do you have any cash? No. Then go buy a few cans of Coke. Boss, you're empty-handed now. You want me to buy it? Boss, you're empty-handed. Do you pay my salary or do I pay yours? Portia's cheeks twitched. I'll go. Looking at Chen Zhao, Ames whispered to Navat Singh, I want to kill him. Can I? Navat rubbed his forehead. I want to kill him too. The plane arrived. Everyone finally boarded successfully. Target, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Although Minneapolis wasn't well known, it was considered a big city in the United States. It had a population of 400,000 and a GDP of $200 billion. However, the kids were still making noise after boarding the plane. Chen Zhao really had a headache. Apart from Shinli Singh, he cast Banshee's charm on all the other kids. At some point, the entire cabin quieted down. Boss, you know hypnosis? Portia looked at Chen Zhao in surprise. Chen Zhao walked to the kids and snapped his fingers. Then they all fell asleep. I'm a doctor, Chen Zhao said matter-of-factly. Edith had been paying attention to Chen Zhao. When he saw Chen Zhao use Banshee's charm, he couldn't help but frown. Is he a spiritual spiritualist? Spiritual spiritualists had always been criticized for their combat abilities. Their spells were quite effective against normal people, but against people with stronger wills, the effect would start to weaken. Against spiritualists, the effect would be even worse. The stronger the spiritualist magic was, the worse the effect would be. As long as one had 1/3 of the spellcaster's magic, the spiritualist spells would have a hard time being effective. Of course, it wasn't completely useless. It could only be said that hypnosis spells would be much less effective. On the other hand, some mental stimulation and mental curses were still effective. For example, mental whip could disturb the enemy in battle. They arrived at the Minneapolis International Airport. Everyone was carrying 2 children, even ex-Anli Singh. The kids were too sleepy. They went to the hotel first. Everyone was a bit tired. Ames didn't seem to be in a hurry to go to the Vrykul family's residence. Ames, where's the Vrykul family's residence? Ames glanced at Chen Zhao. After some hesitation, he said St. Anthony Waterfall. Aren't we going today? No, we can't today, Ames said. Edith said. The Vrykul family hid their settlement in the waterfall and cast magic. There are only 2 ways to find the entrance. One is to open it from the inside, and the other is that the entrance only opens once on the 15th night of every month, and it only opens for an hour. Is there a difference between opening it every day and once a month? Chen Zhao pursed his lips. If it really attracts enemies, they won't be 1 or 2 days late. They sealed the entrance, but that doesn't mean they can't receive information from the outside, Ames said. The Vrykul family's people in the residence must know that Warren is going to harm them, so they'll definitely be prepared. They'll also look for reinforcements. Warren will also return in failure this time. Whatever, Nawat Singh said. Tomorrow is the 15th. In the Vrykul Residence A, figures swayed at the exit. Maggie, what are you doing at the exit? Maggie Vrykul turned to look at the person behind her. Geraldine, why are you here? Geraldine Vrykul and Maggie Vrykul stared at each other in silence. Suddenly, Maggie Vrykul raised an eyebrow. You're with him too? /35 / 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 1814. Not long after, Maggie Vrykul and Geraldine Vrykul stood in front of a stone array formed by dozens of stone pillars. Maggie Vrykul glanced at Geraldine Vrykul. I didn't expect you to be Warren's man. You too. I didn't expect it either, Geraldine Weichel said indifferently. Maji Weichel was the daughter of the patriarch, but she betrayed the Weichel group. Because he can fulfill everyone's wish, Maji Weichel said matter-of-factly. What wish did you make to him? Geraldine Weichel didn't speak. She looked at the stone array and asked, How do I remove the space displacement? You can't remove the space displacement. Otherwise, this place will be directly connected to the outside world and exposed to the public. By then, even Warren won't be able to do anything, Maji Weichel said. If you don't remove the space displacement, then what do? It's very simple. Move that stone pillar to that position. Then move that stone pillar to this side. That's strange. This isn't a Western magic array, right? This is China's feng shui. Guide the wind. Maji Weichel said, Orion as the chess piece, Big Dipper as the general, Dragon Mountain. Ziwei as the command. What are you muttering? Don't interrupt me. Do as I say. Move that stone here. This is to change the array so that one can only enter but not leave. Geraldine Weichel silently followed Maji Weichel's instructions. At this moment, a hole appeared at the other end of the stone array. You can come in, Mr. Warren, Maji Weichel said with her phone in her hand. From the hole, a few figures appeared. Warren, Zoran, Sean and Bion walked in from outside the hole. Sean looked at the stone array in front of him and said in surprise, It's amazing. There was no such magic array in the past. What system of magic is this? Sir Sean, this is an Eastern magic array. It's a completely different system from Western magic, Warren said. At this moment, Maji Weichel and Geraldine Weichel walked over. Mr. Warren, I've done what I asked. Now it's time to keep my promise, Maji Weichel said. Killing your father, that's all. Warren asked. Yes. Sure. Warren nodded. This was not a difficult task, and he had originally intended to do so. Where is it? It's in his hands, too. Geraldine Vick was a little surprised. Maji Vicker's wish was to kill the chief. He was her father. He didn't understand what kind of grudge the father and daughter had. So much so that Maji Vick would rather collude with outsiders. Even if it meant risking the annihilation of his entire clan, he wanted his father to die. Geraldine, what is your wish? Warren asked. Of course, a trade had to be fair. Warren also had to abide by the rules of the trade. He really wanted to learn from the villains in the movies. After achieving his goal, he directly killed the person. But he couldn't do that. Of course, he couldn't accept anything that Warren couldn't do. Revive my sister. Warren closed his eyes and thought for a while. I can't do it. You just can't do it now, Geraldine Vick said. Warren frowned slightly. He seemed to know something. Even if I succeed, I can't do it, Warren said. No one can revive the dead. You just need to summon my sister's soul back after the plan is completed, Geraldine Vick said. Where did your sister's soul go? Hell, how did she die? She didn't die. I have kept her body intact. She violated the clan rules, so her soul was sent to hell. I see. Warren nodded. If his plan really succeeded, then he could indeed summon his sister's soul out of hell. The premise was that his sister's soul was still intact. Are they your men? Maji Vicker asked. No, they are God, the great pillar king of our Roma people, Warren said indifferently. Geraldine Vick looked at Sean, Byron, and Zoran. His eyes flickered. He kept staring at the three as if he wanted to use all his strength to pierce through them. If there was anyone in this world who could know Warren's plan, it was him. Geraldine Vriku even guessed the details of Walloon's plan. Are they the legendary Pillar King? Maji Viku looked at Walloon as if he was a lunatic. Pillar King? Let's not talk about whether the legend was true. Even if the Pillar King really existed, it was more than 2,000 years ago. Maji Vick didn't believe that the legendary Pillar King would really appear. 3 sirs, you can start. Warren looked at the 3 Pillar Kings. Sorry for troubling you. At this moment, the Vicker family's residential area was silent. The silence was frightening. There wasn't even a sound of insects. Let me do it. At this moment, Shane walked out with a ball of string in her hand. Sean suddenly threw the ball of string out. The ball of string flew into the air, and the end of the string suddenly shot into the darkness. Sean took out the same ball of string and repeated the same trick. Then Sean took out the third, the fifth. These strings traveled in the darkness and rushed into the residential area in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, the rope that had been released from a small ball of string had wrapped itself tightly around the house. In the end, Sean gave it a tug. The entire house and the owner inside were instantly killed. At the same time, the entire residential area suddenly sounded an alarm. Not good. Someone entered here. Enemy attack. Enemy attack. The Vickers in the residential area were instantly like ants on a hot pan. The 5 balls of string that Sean threw were obviously not ordinary strings. Each ball of string had a different color. The red string was burning with flames. The silver-white string was like frost. The white string was electrified. The black string was poisonous. All the strings crisscrossed and covered the entire residential area. These crisscrossed strings were more like a nest, whether it was an adult or a child, whether it was a man or a woman. But in front of Sean, he seemed so weak and fragile. Sean was the first to be awakened, but it was the first time Warren saw Sean in action. It wasn't shocking and it wasn't colorful either. But Sean's magic was filled with endless killing intent. What kind of magic is this? Geraldine asked, puzzled. It's a familiar. Sir Sean isn't awakened, Warren said. Among the 5 Pillar Kings, 3 were magic awakened and 2 were bloodline awakened. Sean's magic was purely to control objects. Chapter 1815. Sean, you're too slow. Bion walked out. His movements were slow, as if he was an old man past his prime. But with every step he took, his appearance became younger. With every step he took, his body grew bigger. When he reached Sean's side, he had changed a lot. He was no longer a decaying old man, but a strong young man. Bion's body emitted a strong aura as his palms began to accumulate and compress magic. Everyone was shocked when they saw Bion's movement. Everyone felt like they were facing a walking nuclear bomb. Bion's movement was very similar to the Kamehameha in the manga. Haha. Bion's palms suddenly pushed forward. Just like the Kamehameha, a white light retreated from Bion's palms. Rumble, the entire residential area was razed to the ground, leaving a shocking crater in the center of the residential area. It was as if it was hit by a missile. Maji Vicker and Geraldine Vicker, who were standing at the back, almost lost their balance. Their faces were filled with horror and disbelief. Whether it was Sean or Byron, both of them were so terrifying and unbelievable. Sean alone could slaughter the entire Vicker family's residential area. After all, there were more than 300 people here. Every single one of them, regardless of gender or age, was a spiritualist. But when faced with Sean, they were helpless. Bion was even more terrifying. Just one move, and he razed this place to the ground. Bion, using magic like this will only shorten your existence, Zoran said. It doesn't matter. This awakening isn't in my plan anyway. Bion's body gradually shrunk and returned to his old man appearance. Warren glanced at Bion from the corner of his eyes and walked into the ruins. Just then, a figure rushed out from the ruins. Maji Vicker's father, Wilson Vicker. Wilson Vicker's body was covered in a thin layer of light. The light was like a burning flame. I'm going to kill you, Wilson Vicker roared. Warren didn't seem surprised when he saw Wilson Vicker. Titan's power! Warren took a deep breath, and his body instantly became powerful. Warren punched Wilson Vicker in the face. Wilson Vicker was thrown several meters away, but he stood up and scathed. Viper's whip! Warren's arm suddenly stretched out like a long whip, lashing heavily on Wilson Vicker's body. The halo on Wilson Vrika's body was almost shattered, but it soon stabilized. Teeth of the hungry wolf. Warren launched another attack before Wilson Vicker could react. A pair of fang-like spikes suddenly shot out from Wilson Vrika's back. Ah! Wilson Vrika screamed. However, this wasn't the end for him. Warren's next round of attacks had already arrived. Bind of Thorns. A thorny vine drilled out from the ground under Wilson Vrika's feet and bound him tightly. Wilson Vicker was already panicking. Walloon's attacks were too sharp, and it felt like he knew every move Kieran was about to make. All the attacks were aimed at his weak points, and they were a step ahead of him. He didn't even have the strength to fight back. Wilson Vicker wanted to struggle, but his body was fixed by the thorny vine, so he couldn't activate his magic. Warren walked in front of Wilson Vicker. Warren still had a faint smile on his face, and at the same time he took off the ring on Wilson Vicker's finger. "Is this the Holy Spirit? Give it back to me, you bastard!" Wilson Vicker roared angrily. However, Warren didn't seem to hear Wilson Vicker's roar. He wore the Holy Spirit ring on his finger. He felt the power bestowed by the Holy Spirit ring. "Mr. Wilson, you've let the Holy Spirit ring be covered in dust. You don't even know how to use the Holy Spirit ring. All of you are the same. You've tarnished the name of Ancestor Cook's gift," Warren said as a matter of fact. "Now I will take back what belongs to our family. This is our Vicker family's, not yours." Wilson Vicker roared angrily. Warren glanced behind Wilson Vicker. "He's yours." Wilson Vicker was tied up at this moment. He couldn't see behind him. However, he vaguely sensed something. "Maggie? It's you? You damned little bastard." "Poochie!" Wilson Vicker lowered his head and looked at his pierced chest. His mouth started to vomit blood. "Maggie, you dare?" "Yes, I dare." Maggie Vicker pulled out the weapon in her hand and stabbed it again. Wilson Vicker struggled several times before he finally breathed his last. "Miss Maggie, please don't damage your father's body." Warren looked at Maggie Vicker with a smile. Now, their deal was completely completed. Maggie Vicker would also be completely loyal to him. "Yes, Mr. Warren." Maggie Vicker pulled out her sword and silently retreated to the side. At this moment, Geraldine Vicker, Sean, Byron, and Zoran walked over. Geraldine Vicker looked at Warren. Warren was laying Wilson Vicker's body on the ground. Then he stabbed a crystal into Wilson Vicker's chest. "Did you make that soul device?" Geraldine Vicker asked. Warren glanced at Geraldine Vicker. "You also know alchemy magic?" Geraldine Vicker continued. "It looks like the product of the combination of Eastern refining and Egyptian soul binding." Warren began to prepare the magic circle and then placed the body in the center of the magic circle. It was the same process as waking up Zoran. Under Warren's magic spell, Wilson Vicker's body suddenly opened its eyes. Maggie Vicker was shocked and immediately pulled out her weapon. "Put away your weapon. He's not your father. He's your ancestor now. Erewhon, long time no see." Sean took the lead to greet Western Pillar King, Erewhon Vicker. Erewhon looked at his body. It was the same as when Zoran woke up. He was familiarizing himself with his body. "Which one of you woke me up?" "It's the kid from the Cook family." Erewhon looked at Warren with his bull head. "Tell me your purpose." "I need you to wake up my ancestor, Great Pillar King Quemeles," Warren said. Erewhon glanced at the other 3 Pillar Kings. He couldn't tell if he was happy or angry. "Seems like you're mentally prepared." "Yes, I'm ready." Warren nodded. "Then let's do it here. /35 /, 9 Heaven's God King. Chapter 1816. Warren wore 5 artifacts. Heal, Fearless, Guidance, Order, and Holy Spirit. These 5 artifacts were an earring, a pendant, a bracelet, a mask, and a ring. Sean, Bayan, Zoran, and Erewhon stood in 4 different directions. The magic needed to summon the soul of the Great Pillar King was far beyond what ordinary people could bear. Only when the other four Pillar Kings joined forces would they have enough magic to summon the Great Pillar King. The magic of the four Pillar Kings was surging. Each of them had a magic that could make people 100 times stronger. Geraldine, what are they doing? Resurrecting our god of creation. Great Pillar King Quemeles, said Geraldine Vreichel. Resurrection. Maji Vreichel looked at Geraldine Vreichel in confusion. Yes, resurrection. But why can he still be resurrected after more than 2,000 years? Is it because the soul of God can't be destroyed? Maji Vreichel was puzzled. Let's not talk about whether Quemeles is a god or not. Even if he really is a god, I'm afraid his soul will be destroyed in 2,000 years. Then do you know why Quemeles is called the god of creation? I don't understand. Because he really created a world. To be precise, it's a small world, a world that belongs only to him. His plan was perfect, but he overestimated his faith. There are very few souls that were truly qualified to be taken into heaven, causing the heaven he created to be unable to be maintained. Quemeles also died to maintain this heaven. After his death, his soul entered this heaven, but he completely closed the heaven he created and finally completely sealed his soul in this heaven. Geraldine Vreichel paused and said, Now they are summoning Quemeles' soul from heaven, and then using Warren's body as the host, temporarily resurrecting Quemeles. Host? As the host, his soul and consciousness should also be erased, right? Geraldine Vreichel nodded. That's right. So the object of my allegiance soon became Camilla's? Geraldine Vreichel smiled and did not answer. How do you know all this? Maji Vicar asked in confusion. These are secrets, and I happen to be the next patriarch's successor, said Geraldine Vreichel. Maji Vicar looked at Geraldine Vicar in surprise. As the daughter of the current patriarch, Maji Vicar knew a lot of things. For example, Geraldine Vixmatter. In order to resurrect his sister, Geraldine Vreichel had been studying alchemy and necromancy. There were also many other systems of magic. As long as it could be of use, he would study it. Of course, research and learning were two different things. However, this also made Geraldine Vyack the most outstanding and knowledgeable person among the younger generation. Among his peers, no one could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Many people in the Vreichel family liked to do research, no matter what aspect it was. The Roma once said of the Vreichel family, a family full of evil and order. In order to carry out all kinds of research, the Vreichel family often had no bottom line. Many taboo research was never taboo in their eyes. Then why did you say it now? Is it still necessary to keep it a secret now? Geraldine Vreichel smiled. The Vreichel family has been destroyed. Both of us are now just stray dogs. What about your sister? Her soul entered the heaven created by Camilla's. She is a firm believer of Camilla's. Geraldine Vreichel said, So, as long as Camilla's is resurrected, then he naturally has the ability to bring my sister's soul out. No wonder. Maji Vreichel looked at the center of the field. Those four people are really the four Pillar Kings? Yes, at least their souls are the four Pillar Kings. Geraldine Vreichel nodded. Their souls are also in heaven. How did your sister die? Maji Vreichel asked. If you don't want to say, I won't force you. In order to pursue the secret of Camilla's, Geraldine Vreichel said. She is a more fanatical researcher than me. Maji Vreichel could understand this. Most people in the Vreichel family were like this. They would do anything to do research. The reason why Maji Vreichel hated her father, it was because her father had done inhumane, forbidden experiments on her mother. The four Pillar Kings emitted shocking magic power. This was just the magic power that was dissipated. The amount of magic they consumed was even more shocking. The amount of magic they released in an instant was almost equivalent to all the magic a normal person could release at once. However, their magic recovery speed was also shocking. Even so, Their magic power still couldn't keep up with the speed of consumption. Wah! Little Larissa suddenly burst into tears. Huh! Chen Zhao suddenly opened his eyes. Chen Zhao immediately stood up and comforted little Larissa. In that instant, Chen Zhao felt an aura permeating the air. Surging, powerful, Chen Zhao looked at the time. It was only 1 a.m. He carried the crying little Larissa out of the room. Just then, Nawat Singh, who lived in the next room, walked out. Then Edith also walked out of the room opposite. The three glanced at each other. Edith's expression was solemn. Scary, too scary. What was with that magic power? Perhaps all the spiritualists in the city had sensed that terrifying magic power. At this moment, the children in the other rooms were also awakened and ran out of their rooms. They were also awakened by the scary magic power. Uncle, what is that? It's too scary. Shinli Singh stared at Chen Zhao in fear. There seems to be something incredible, Chen Zhao said calmly. Something incredible has appeared. Where did it come from? The aura came from the northeast, Chen Zhao said. Northeast? That's where St. Anthony Waterfall is, Edith said seriously. Is it the Vrykul family's residence? Let's go there and take a look, Chen Zhao said. Go there? Now, something must have happened to the Vrykul family. I just don't know if it's Warren's doing. Chapter 1817. Portia opened the door angrily. Boss! Portia's first voice was very loud. However, when she saw little Larissa in Chen Zhao's arms, she immediately lowered her voice. Boss, look at the time. What time is it now? Portia growled at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao shoved little Larissa into Portia's arms. What? I'll leave little Larissa and Jerlin to you. Boss! Portia glanced outside. Apart from little Jerlin and Larissa, all the kids were awake. Emu Edith and Nawat Singh were also standing outside the door. Boss, what are you going to do? Enjoy the scenery, Chen Zhao answered seriously. Late at night? You have so many kids? Is there a problem? Of course there was a problem. Portia stared at Chen Zhao with dead fish eyes. Boss, are you serious? Do I look like I'm joking? I think you're just joking. Okay, take care of little Jerlin and Larissa for me. Boss, I think you're making arrangements for your funeral. Do you still want your salary for this month? Chen Zhao looked at Chen Zhao with a dark expression. Okay. Boss, have a safe journey. Chen Zhao teased little Larissa, who had fallen asleep again. Little Larissa pursed her lips and waved her short hands, hugging Portia's arms. He glared at Portia viciously before turning around and leaving. Portia walked in front with the kids. Edith and Chen Zhao followed behind. Why do you have so many kids? Edith frowned at Chen Zhao. Revenge, Chen Zhao said. Revenge? What can they do? I'll beat their enemies half to death first, and then leave the rest to them. The youngest is only 5 or 6. You want them to kill people. Of course not. I don't want them to kill people. They can't kill people anyway. We don't even know how strong our enemies are. You have so many kids with you. They might be affected. Edith still didn't agree with Chen Zhao's method. In his opinion, bringing kids into battle, no matter what their intentions were, it would increase the risk. No one can hurt my child in front of me, Chen Zhao said indifferently. Suddenly, 3 people appeared at the entrance of the hotel. Chen Zhao recognized one of them. It was Okula Singh, sister of Nawat Singh. But Nards Hingis knew them, Barbara Rush Dominguez. When Nawat saw the 3 of them, he immediately became vigilant. Knots, where are you going? Move, Okula. I don't want to fight you now. Nawat looked at the 3 coldly. Chen Zhao walked forward. Okula glanced at Chen Zhao. They had met once when Nawat Singh was hospitalized. Back then, Okula thought that Chen Zhao was a doctor. Knots, do you need me? If you can't do it, Chen Zhao asked. Who do you think you are? Okula stared at Chen Zhao fiercely. Chin, it's okay. Thanks. Nei Wat's shingles stopped him. She didn't want Chen Zhao to fight her sister. She didn't want that to happen. Otherwise, the consequences would be very serious. Okula Singh looked at her sister. Knots, leave here. Okula looked at her sister seriously. You don't understand what you're facing. I defeated Warren before. I can still do it now. You don't understand. You don't understand at all. You were able to defeat him last time because his plan hadn't started yet. Okula shook his head and said, now his plan has succeeded. What plan does he have? Knots asked. He revived the 4 Pillar Kings, Okula said, and he has the power of the great Pillar Kings. Knots, give up. You can't defeat Mr. Warren. Barbara was from the same family as them. She also didn't want Knots to take a fearless risk. Give up? Ask these kids. Will they give up? Okula, Barbara, and Dominguez suddenly realized that the kids before them were actually the juniors of their family. Since they're here, I can't let you take the risk. You're going to die. I know what I'm doing, Knots said. Knots, you really don't need me to do anything. No, Knots said. You guys go first. I'll deal with the 3. Oh, Chin, I'll lend you something. Okay. Chin Zhao nodded. Then hurry up and follow us. Edith and Chen Zhao sent the children onto a bus. Edith said worriedly as he drove. Can Nei Watts solve the problem alone? Of course. You should trust her, Chen Zhao said. Huh. She's already back. Thud. Edith suddenly heard something fall from the roof of the car. Just then, Knots jumped down from the top of the bus. Knots! Edith could not understand. He didn't expect Knots to solve the problem so quickly. The 3 men were obviously not weak, but Navot's shingles came back so quickly. Chun Zhao remembered that Knots was a perception-type witch. Since when was her combat power so strong? You went too easy, Chun Zhao said. Knots couldn't do anything about it. After all, she was her sister. She didn't understand why Okula, Barbara, and Dominguez were willing to be Warren's lackeys. In her eyes, the 3 of them had never been evil, especially her own sister. So she couldn't go too hard. She didn't even dare to use Jin form. Chin Zhao looked behind him. There was a car following. Knots, you really went too easy. They're following us. Behind him, Okula's face was filled with shock and anger. Drive faster. We have to stop them. We can't let Warren see them. They'll die. Barbara and Dominguez were also worried. After all, the car in front was the last hope of the Singh family. But they knew how terrifying Warren was, especially Warren now. Even if they weren't beside him, they could still feel his vast magic power. It was a power that made people feel despair. They couldn't even muster the courage to resist. The people in front of them were basically seeking death by going against Warren. They couldn't let them die. Definitely not. Chapter 1818. Chun Zhao leaned against the window of the bus and looked at Okula Singh, who had caught up to them. Hey, little girl, you should listen to your sister. If you catch up again, I won't go easy on you. In the back seat of the sports car, Barbara had already activated the Fury Witch's spell. A ball of flames shot toward Chin Zhao. Chin Zhao clapped his hands, and the flames exploded in his palm. Barbara stared at Chen Zhao in surprise. Her attack was ineffective. She hadn't used her full strength, but it was still very easy to kill someone. Even if the target was a spiritualist, the power was enough to heavily injure them. Okula, aren't offensive spells a little too common these days? Barbara Rush said, a little annoyed. When she'd encountered Navots before, her attack had been useless. Now, it was useless against a random man. Chen Zhao looked at the 3 people in the sports car. I think it's better to kill you now. Just then, a hand pressed down on Chen Zhao's raised arm. Navots looked at Chen Zhao. Chen, just let them follow. They can't do anything. Fine. Qinzhao knew that Navots had softened again, but he could understand. If it was him facing his family, they would also be as indecisive as Navotsing. Finally, with the combined efforts of the four pillar monarchs, a figure emerged from the center of the magic formation. When they saw the figure in the center, the four pillar monarchs finally exhaled deeply. They'd finally succeeded. The four pillar monarchs knelt on the ground. Greetings, Your Majesty. Even though the Roma had never established a country, in the hearts of the four pillar monarchs, they were loyal to the true king. Whether it was his power, his breadth of mind, or even his knowledge, everything about him was so admirable. Maji Vraiku and Geraldine Vraiku knelt on the ground too. They looked at their incorporeal bodies, soul forms. Then Kumarez looked at Walloon standing before him. Kumarez touched his chin and a smile appeared on his face. I can see your past, your future, your ambition, and your dreams. Although I don't like what you do, I still respect you, Kumarez said. Warren knelt on one knee. Greetings, Your Majesty, great Pillar King. Although I know your goal, I don't intend to stop you. Do you want my power? I'll give it to you, all of it. Kumarez suddenly slammed his palm towards Walloon. In an instant, a surging power was injected into Walloon's body. It was a power greater than Warren could imagine. The crystal pillar in front of his chest burst out with a strong light and was almost instantly filled with magic. A wave of energy spread out from Warren's body and continued to spread outwards. Like a shock wave, it spread throughout the entire city. In an instant, the entire city fell into darkness. All the buildings and the lights on the streets had disappeared. It even affected 3 or 4 nearby cities. The impact covered a radius of several hundred kilometers. The pain lasted for several minutes, but to Warren, it felt as long as centuries. However, everything was finally over. Walloon looked at his hands in disbelief. At this moment, Warren felt that the pain just now was nothing. All the hard work was nothing. It was all worth it. He finally got his reward. This power, this godlike power, he couldn't believe it at all. Warren took a deep breath and took off heel. Holy Spirit, order, fearless, and guidance. Geraldine Vickers' eyes glowed. He's Warren now, or Kumarez. Warren, he's Warren. His gaze hasn't changed, Geraldine Vickers said. Why? Shouldn't his body be occupied by Kumarez? Why hasn't his consciousness and soul been erased? He can't possibly resist Great Pillar King's consciousness. Because of the things in his hands, Geraldine Vickers said. Those are the artifacts of the 5 families, right? Maji Vicker asked. Yes, they're all made by the Cook family. Those things, can they prevent Warren from losing control of his body to Kumarez? Fearless, it's immune to all fear and also immune to all mind control. Order, it's an artifact that maintains one's self, undisturbed by outsiders, guidance, and gives the most powerful protection to the soul. Holy Spirit strengthens all attributes of self. Geraldine Vickers said, There's also Heal, which doubles the power of the other 4 artifacts. So this is the reason why he took the 4 artifacts. To take Kumarez's power, but not be controlled by Kumarez. Although Walloon had calculated everything, he didn't expect that even though Kumarez was in soul form, he still couldn't be manipulated by Walloon. But he still succeeded. Kumarez's power was taken by him. No, Kumarez gave it to him. He didn't take it. At this moment, the 5 artifacts floated in front of Warren. Warren began to unleash unparalleled power. It was so powerful that it was shocking. Even Walloon himself was astonished. However, such a powerful force did not seem to be able to dry up. Great, this is the power. It's fascinating power. Under Warren's powerful power, the 5 artifacts began to gradually merge. What is he doing? Is he destroying the 5 artifacts? No, on the contrary, he's showing the true face of the artifacts, Geraldine Vickers said. True face? I don't understand. Your father once studied the artifact, Holy Spirit, in his hand. Geraldine Vickers' eyes lit up. He found that the Holy Spirit is actually incomplete. But the Holy Spirit has never been damaged since it appeared. How could it be damaged? So there's only one possibility. It's not that the master of a certain era destroyed the artifact, but the artifact has always been incomplete since it was created. The original purpose of the Cook family creating the 5 artifacts was to combine them into one. Maybe, since 2,000 years ago, the Cook family has been waiting for this opportunity, Maji Vickers said. I really can't believe it. After waiting for 2,000 years for a huge plan to seize the power of a god, this plan has finally been completed in Warren's hands. He has the power of a god, and at the same time, he has a true divine artifact. No one in this world can defeat him. The 5 artifacts turned into a near-perfect golden armor and automatically put it on Warren's body, /35 Anusar. 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 1819. A halo appeared behind Walloon's head. Right now, he looked like a real god. No, not like. He was a god. Walloon exhaled the turbid air in his body. Brick looked at Sean, Bion, Zoran, and Erewhon. You already know my real goal, and you've completed the deal. Are you going to leave now? Or are you going to stop me? Walloon would not underestimate the 4 Pillar Kings. However, he was not afraid of them either. He was stronger than them. He could clearly feel the difference. Sean had a faint smile on his face. No need. His Majesty Quemaras said that we don't need to do anything. We only need to wait to return to heaven. Before that, please control us like His Majesty. Sean's smile was as dazzling as summer flowers. Walloon did not understand that he had Quemaras' power. However, he could not understand Quemaras' intentions. He did not understand his words either. He also did not understand what the 4 Pillar Kings meant. They already knew that he'd lied to them. However, they seemed to be a bit too generous. They had completely forgotten about the past and were still willing to be loyal to him. They had power but no cultivation. It was awkward. Just then a voice came from the back. The people from the Vrykul family must be crazy. Every time they come in and out, it's like they're taking a shower. It's like a water curtain cave. Zhao combed his hair and shook off the water on his body. Everyone looked behind them and saw a few people walking out from the entrance of the cave. However, the combination of this group of people was really strange. 3 adults and a group of children. Who are you? Get out of here, Maji Vrykul yelled. Walloon waved his hand and said indifferently, Maji, move. Walloon had already seen Nawat's singer. Clearly, they were here for revenge. Yes, Mr. Walloon. So ugly. Who designed this armor? Chen Zhao looked at the dazzling armor on Walloon. He really felt that it was ugly, extremely ugly. Walloon's expression started to turn ugly. This was the masterpiece of the Cook family's ancestor. It was also a divine artifact that he was proud of. But now it was being belittled by a stranger. What made him feel the most ashamed was that now that everyone's eyes were on him, it made him feel even more ashamed. Warren clenched his fists. He felt like he was going to have a cerebral hemorrhage. But as soon as he got angry, the mana in his body surged like a tsunami. The 4 Pillar Kings frowned and took a step back, although they were not as powerful as the current Warren. However, they wouldn't be scared off by Warren's aura. It was just that Warren's strength had exceeded their expectations. Warren's current strength had already surpassed Quemira's. Edith's expression changed drastically. What a terrifying aura. Just the aura alone was enough to make him unable to resist it. Who will kill him? Warren asked indifferently. At this moment, Geraldine Vrykul stepped forward. Mr. Warren, please give me a chance to express my loyalty to you. Warren nodded slightly. Go, don't let me down. Edith also took a step forward, looking like he was ready to die for justice. Geraldine, I didn't expect you to be a traitor. Edith knew Geraldine Vrykul. Geraldine Vrykul smiled disapprovingly. Stop talking. Just do it. If you can't even beat me, you'd better leave. I don't want to kill you. This was the only thing Geraldine Vraiku could do. In your dreams, Ames Edith growled. His body suddenly split into two into four into 8. Oh, Qin Zhao exclaimed. Edith's spell was very similar to the doppelganger, but upon closer inspection, he realized that something was wrong. Ames Edith's clones had indeed become 8, but the 8 clones only had 1/8 of the original's power. The original's power was also 1/8. In other words, Ames Edith's spell had actually split his power into 8 parts. However, when Ames Edith's clones and original fought, Qin Zhao realized that the clone spell wasn't without its advantages. Both his main body and his doppelgangers had unique attributes. His main body was water element, while his other clones were lightning element, voodoo element, fire element, wind element, earth element, strength element, speed element, and stealth element. The 8 clones attacked at the same time. The scene was as beautiful as a painting, brilliant and colorful. Whoosh! What a beautiful and magnificent spell. Then he turned to the kids beside him and asked, "Do you want Coke and popcorn?" Geraldine Vicker, on the other hand, dodged Ames Edith's intensive attacks in a slightly awkward manner. But at this time, Edith's magic flaws were also revealed. The attack power was too weak. Geraldine Vraikel was obviously hit by magic several times, but he was only lightly injured. Not a single spell could seriously injure him or make him lose the ability to fight. You really shouldn't use this spell in front of me. I know you too well, especially your weakness. Amy Edith's expression grew more and more solemn. The last person he wanted to face was Geraldine Vyacht. If necromancy was said to be the strangest of all magic systems, then Geraldine Vraikel was the weirdest psychic among all the psychics. Suddenly, one of Edith's clones shrieked and turned into smoke. Amy Edith froze, his face full of astonishment. He had no idea how Qin Zhao did it. How had his clones been destroyed? Then the second, the third, the fourth, at the 7th clone, only Edith's main body was left. Isn't it weird? Geraldine Vyacht looked at her friend with a smile. This is my newly developed spell, Psionic Tentacles. It transforms magic into invisible tentacles. This spell is very similar to Countless Ties, Qin Zhao murmured. Geraldine Vicker seemed to have heard Qin Zhao's words and glanced at him. When she saw Qin Zhao, she almost vomited blood. Qin Zhao was sitting cross-legged on the ground. The kids beside him were the same. Everyone had Coke and popcorn in their hands. Did they come here to watch a movie? Uncle M, go! The kids cheered at the same time. You can't beat him, Qin Zhao called. You better back off. You can't sense his tentacles unless you can open your psionic vision. Psionic vision. Edith could tell that Qin Zhao was reminding him, but he couldn't do it. He looked at Geraldine Vyacht, unwilling to give up. You should listen to him. You can't beat me. Chapter 1820. Edith was discouraged, but he was also desperate. He'd been pessimistic about this trip, especially after seeing Walloon's terrifying and peerless pressure. He no longer held any hope in this matter. Now he couldn't even beat Geraldine Vraikel. He couldn't stop Walloon and take revenge. Edith couldn't see any hope. Geraldine Vraikel looked at Qin Zhao. Mister over there, do you think you can beat me? Any kid I send can beat you up. Do you believe me? Qin Zhao said casually. Geraldine Vraikel smiled, but didn't say anything. She looked at Qin Zhao calmly. Kilo, stand up and beat him up, Qin Zhao said. Kilo, who was happily eating popcorn and sipping Coke, heard the bad news in the blink of an eye. Uncle, you want me to go? Yeah, go. Teach him a lesson for me. Everyone was stunned by Qin Zhao's decision. How could such a young boy defeat Geraldine? Do you believe me? Qin Zhao asked seriously. Kilo didn't believe him, but he couldn't say it. He looked at Qin Zhao with a troubled expression. Good. I'll take it that you agree if you don't say anything. Chen Zhao grabbed Kilo's shoulder. Go. Kilo was thrown before Geraldine Reichel. For a moment, Kilo didn't know what to do. Chen Zhao sat cross-legged and supported his face with one arm. Smiling, he looked at Kilo. In Chen Zhao's small world, spiritual qi was silently seeping into Kilo's body. Others couldn't, but Kilo could. Because Kilo was an enhancer, his body was stronger than normal people. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't drink too much. Edith's face was green. Mr. Chin, what are you doing? Are you sending your child to die? Just because you lost doesn't mean others will. Chen Zhao glanced at and then at Kilo. Kilo beat him up. Don't give me face. Kilo was helpless, facing the powerful Geraldine Reichel. He could only brace himself. Ha! Kilo raised his arm and hammered at Geraldine Vyacht. There was a smile on Geraldine Reichel's face. Her psionic tentacles had already wrapped around Kilo's limbs. Kaluo suddenly felt his limbs grow sluggish, but it didn't affect his movements. Crow suddenly exerted his strength and punched Geraldine Vyacht. Geraldine Reichel's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly put up a barrier in front of him. Sizzle! Crow's fist slammed into the wall, producing a sharp, ear-piercing sound. Everyone had an uncomfortable expression on their faces. Then he saw the barrier in front of Geraldine Reichel was falling apart rapidly. What great power! Edith and Geraldine Vicker were old acquaintances. He had seen Geraldine Reichel's magic. He knew that this barrier was so strong that it could even withstand the impact of a truck. But it was shattered by a child. Kilo's momentum had weakened, but he was still as ferocious as ever. It landed heavily on Geraldine's face. Geraldine Reichel covered her face and sat on the ground, astonishment written all over her face. Everyone else had the same expression. Astonishment, including Kilo, they all had the same expression. So weak. Tilting his head, Kilo looked at Geraldine Reichel. This sentence not only embarrassed Geraldine Vicker, but it also embarrassed Edith. After all, he'd been defeated by Geraldine Reichel. Kilo turned his head to look at Chen Zhao. Clap. Chen Zhao led the applause, and the other children followed. Kilo was instantly filled with energy. Kilo, be more arrogant, Chen Zhao called. Come on, you minions. Kilo made an indecent gesture. Fuck! Don't give me the middle finger, Chen Zhao immediately shouted. Geraldine Reichel's face darkened. These people were too arrogant. Saying that, he was about to walk forward, but Geraldine Reichel stopped him. You can't beat him, Geraldine Reichel said. Geraldine Reichel was also surprised. He didn't feel that Kilo was very powerful. Yet, Kilo could ignore his magic. He didn't get any answers from Kilo either. Just then, Bayan walked out. Brat, let me exchange a move with you. As long as you can survive my attack, I will admit defeat. Just like before, Byron became younger with every step he took. At the same time, he also emitted a horrifying pressure. Compared to Geraldine Reichel, his pressure was 10 times, 100 times stronger. Edith's expression turned solemn. Kilo also took a step back unconsciously. Unlike Wallen, who almost enveloped the area with his aura, Bayan's aura was very directional. When everyone looked at Bayan, it was as if they were looking at a ruin. The children beside Chen Zhao all shut their mouths. They were also shocked by Bayan's power. Kilo, come back, Chen Zhao called. Kilo had been strengthened by Chen Zhao, but it was very limited. He definitely couldn't fight an enemy of this level. The enemy before him was definitely in the Shanqing state. He wasn't much weaker than Zhang Tianyi. Just as Chen Zhao was about to stand up, Nevat said, Let me do it. You. Chen Zhao frowned at her. I don't have much time, Nevat said. I don't have much time, Nawat Singh said. Once it was over, she would have no combat ability at all. Once the duration of the mirror image magic was over, she would have no combat strength to speak of. Chun Zhao thought for a moment, nodded, and sat back down. With each step, she also grew a bit larger. Similarly, with every step she took, her figure grew a little larger. Her skin glowed with a golden light. Her skin glowed with a golden light. Edith's face was filled with shock. At the moment, Navot seemed to be a different person. That shocking pressure was actually on par with Byron's. Nawat Singh was also taking a gamble. At this moment, Okula Singh, Barbara Rush, and Domingo rushed over. Their arrival didn't attract much attention. They were quietly observing the situation. Everyone's gaze was on Nawat Singh. Wallen narrowed his eyes at Nawat's. She was so powerful, he'd lost to her last time. This woman was Okula's older sister. But where did she get such great power from? She could actually be on par with Bayan, even if it was only temporary. It was still unbelievable. Who was Bayan? He was the Northern Pillar King. Chapter 1821. Bayan looked at Navot in surprise. He also didn't expect someone to be on par with him, even if it was just in terms of aura. It was still unbelievable. Come, Bayan said calmly. Navot didn't hold back. She had already tried her best. But the more she tried, the more she felt that the person before her was powerful and undefeatable. He had reached an inhuman level. Navot didn't have any extra flourishes. It was just a simple punch. It came crashing down with the pressure of Mount Tai. Admiration flashed in Bayan's eyes. He suddenly pushed his palms forward. A dazzling impact shot out from Bayan's palms. The impact instantly drowned Navot's. The impact shot toward the back of Navot's like a hot knife through butter, all the way to the mountain wall. The mountain wall was blasted apart, and tens of thousands of tons of rubble poured down in torrents. Everyone was shocked by this attack. Okula's heart tightened. In the next instant, Navot Singh broke through the light and stood above Bayan. She raised her hand and punched down. It smashed heavily onto Bayan's head. Bayan was sent flying, leaving a ditch on the ground. Navot stood where she was, panting heavily. Bayan stood up too. Half of his face was almost deformed. One could imagine how much damage that attack had done to him. However, Bayan's sunken cheeks were quickly filled with blood. After spitting out some blood, Bayan's face had basically returned to normal. Edith's face was completely pale. Even Navot's, who had been so powerful, wasn't Bayan's match. On the other hand, Byron was unscathed after suffering such a heavy blow. Bayan wasn't angry. Instead, he was even more shocked. He saw that Navot's aura was weakening. In fact, he'd already felt that while Navot's had a strong aura, her foundation was rather weak. However, the battle prowess that she displayed was refreshing, still a little lacking. Bayan stood before Navot's and shook his head. He said regretfully, "What a pity. She's such a junior." "Yeah, it's still not enough." Chun Zhao finally stood up. Even if Navot's gave it his all, he was still a far cry from Bayan. Okula's face was filled with worry. After all, that was her older sister. Byron looked up and saw Chun Zhao walking toward him. Chun Zhao's aura was weak, so weak that it was almost undetectable. Byron narrowed his eyes at Chun Zhao, who had his hands in his pockets. Byron pointed at Navot's and looked at Chun Zhao. "Do you want to save her?" "No need. You can't kill anyone in front of me." Byron sneered. His palm that was pointing at Navot's was already shining brightly. "How about now?" Suddenly, Chun Zhao disappeared before Byron's eyes. Byron felt a chill down his spine and quickly turned around. Chun Zhao appeared behind him, waving his fist with one arm. His eyes were fierce. Shan, Zoran, and Erewhon attacked at the same time. Shan abruptly shot out a dozen or so string balls. The dozen or so balls of string spun and shot out colorful ropes. They wrapped around Chun Zhao's raised right arm. Chun Zhao's right arm shook forcefully. The dozen ropes, representing different elements, were instantly scattered. Byron didn't retreat. Instead, he advanced and grabbed Chun Zhao's right wrist, preventing him from moving. Chen Zhao finally took out his left arm from his pocket. But at this time, Zoran quickly cast a spell and shouted, "Dragon lock!" Then the ground was pierced by chains. The chains shot toward Chen Zhao from the ground and wrapped around his left arm. His left and right arms were controlled at the same time. Erewhon put his palms together and hacked down from above. Radiant Emperor / Intense light gathered in Erewhon's palms. From within the light, an extremely sharp and huge sword extended out. The sword was called Radiant Emperor. It hacked down at Chen Zhao. Clang! Chen Zhao tilted his head slightly, and the sword landed on his shoulder. Blood was seen, but the sword couldn't go any deeper. Everything had happened too quickly. Of course, it ended just as quickly. It started from when Chen Zhao appeared behind Byron without any warning. Then, when the 4 Pillar Kings attacked at the same time, controlling and counterattacking Chen Zhao. It only happened in an instant, and ended in an instant. Edith's face was filled with shock. Maji Vicar and Geraldine Vicar were even more shocked, because they knew who the 4 people who attacked them were. Any one of them was a god of the Roma people. But now, all 4 of them had attacked at the same time. Who exactly was that person? Chen Zhao was controlled, but his expression was calm and indifferent. On the other hand, the 4 clearly had Chen Zhao under control, but their expressions were still serious. Kilo, come and help Nawats back. Nawats was right behind Chen Zhao. That was why Chen Zhao restrained his movements. Kilo hurriedly ran to Nawats. He helped her back to the side. Xian Li, protect everyone, Chen Zhao said. Xian Li's face was filled with worry. After all, Chen Zhao didn't seem to be in a good situation. Are you sure they can protect themselves? Suddenly, Warren charged at the children. Boom! Just then, the 4 Pillar Kings, who should have controlled Chen Zhao firmly, suddenly felt an unparalleled power surge at them. The 4 Pillar Kings were sent flying. The next moment, Chen Zhao blocked Warren's path. Chen Zhao's hand suddenly grabbed the shoulder of Warren's golden armor and squeezed hard. Crack! The shoulder was crushed by Chen Zhao. As expected, I still think your armor is too ugly. Warren's expression darkened. He took a few steps back and pointed his arms at Chen Zhao. In an instant, 10 golden swords appeared behind Warren and shot towards Chen Zhao. Clang, clang, clang. The golden swords weren't damaged at all. Chen Zhao waved casually, and the 10 golden swords turned into scrap metal. The scene was silent. Everyone stared at Chen Zhao in disbelief, especially Maji Vicar and Geraldine Vicar. They knew who the 4 people were. They also knew what kind of existence Warren was now. But Chen Zhao was fighting 1 against 5? Okula Singh, Barbara Rush, and Domingli were equally shocked. They also knew that those 4 were the legendary 4 Pillar Kings. Chen Zhao picked up a scrap sword from the ground. He looked left and right. Fuck, it's not gold. What a waste of my feelings. Chen Zhao was so angry that he squeezed the scrap sword into a ball. That ugly armor you're wearing is made of gold, right? And Edith's eyeballs almost popped out. This guy had been so unreliable the entire time. He didn't expect him to be so strong. 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 1822. The 4 Pillar Kings glanced at each other. This person was very strong. So strong that it made people's hair stand on end. I can't believe there's a monster like you in this era. Byron looked at Chen Zhao. It was hard to tell if his tone was gratified or regretful. Just then, everyone realized that Byron's body and face had become younger, but his aura had also become stronger until he was like a baby. His aura was more than 10 times stronger. Sean's hair also grew longer. Her hair was blood red to begin with. Now it was even burning. Zoran and Erewhon's auras also grew rapidly. They hadn't used their full strength before, but now they had to. Warren spread his arms, and hundreds of golden swords appeared behind him. Everyone had thought that Chen Zhao could really fight 1 against 5. But now they realized that their thoughts had been too excessive. The 4 Pillar Kings and Warren had already fought to a terrifying degree. But at this moment, it was as if everyone's foundation had been increased tenfold. Could they really fight this battle? Gritting his teeth, Qin Zhao looked at the 4 Pillar Kings. Are you serious now? Why don't the 4 of you pretend to fight me? That way, everyone can report back. The 4 Pillar Kings stared at Chen Zhao with dark expressions. Who would pretend to fight with you? Forget it, forget it. Looks like you really want to fight. Clone, 10,000 spells return to 1. Dark assimilation, strength multiplication, giant spirit transformation. Right now, Chen Zhao had become a 5-meter tall giant. Chen Zhao took out the black trident. Just like Chen Zhao, the black trident could change in size and length. Everyone was a little frightened, including the children behind Chen Zhao. Attack! Warren shouted. Hundreds of golden swords shot at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao pointed with his left hand. Thousands of stone swords appeared in the air. The scene was much more majestic than hundreds of golden swords. The 4 Pillar Kings attacked Chen Zhao at the same time. Chen Zhao held the black trident in his right hand and swept it out. Retreat! Sean felt her scalp go numb. She cried out and immediately flew back. Byron hesitated for a moment. When he wanted to retreat, it was already too late. He could only raise his magic to the maximum and yell, "Immortal!" Instantly, Byron's body became as resplendent as a diamond. However, when the trident swept across his body, the diamonds on his body began to crack like glass. The dazzling diamond disintegrated and sputtered outwards. Byron's diamond body was cut in half at the waist. Then, Chen Zhao stabbed at Byron's half-body. Byron's head exploded like a watermelon. Immediately afterward, all of Byron's fragments burst into a bright light that soared into the sky. The beam of light lasted for a few seconds before the diamond-like fragments were reduced to dull ashes. Dead? Byron is dead? Sean muttered to himself. He has returned to heaven and earth. This time he is truly free. Erewhon's face was emotionless. Who is this guy? Zoran's gaze was unprecedentedly serious as he stared at Chen Zhao. Whether it was the remaining 3 Pillar Kings or Warren, or Maji Vicar, Geraldine Vicar, and Okula Singas, they all stared at him in disbelief. One strike. It was just one strike. Everything was over. An unbelievable opponent. However, the next moment, Chen Zhao said something that made everyone speechless. What a pity, Chen Zhao said regretfully. If I sold such a large diamond, I don't know how many millions I could get. Warren, Zoran, Erewhon, and Sean's gazes became unprecedentedly serious. Of course, Sean's gaze was still serious, and his smile was still like a blooming flower. Warren, I didn't think that you would encounter such a strong opponent right after you succeeded. I won't lose. Warren's expression was cold and his gaze was serious. His tone was firm, but he gave off a feeling of lack of confidence. If His Majesty Quemeles faced him personally, the outcome might be 50-50, but I'm stronger than Quemeles, Warren said forcefully. Zoran glanced at Warren indifferently. You only obtained Quemeles's power, but not his realm. Also, how much of Quemeles's magic do you know? The opponent is at the same level as Quemeles. His realm matches his strength and battle experience are extremely rich. You, on the other hand, are just a nouveau riche who inherited a huge inheritance. Huh. Sean chuckled, but her laughter was so piercing to Warren's ears. Cut the crap. Quemeles wants you to listen to my orders. Even if you die, you have to fight to the end. As you wish. Sean smiled and shrugged. However, Chen Zhao suddenly attacked. The black trident appeared in front of Sean without any warning. Sorry for interrupting your conversation. Sean's expression froze. but in the blink of an eye, a relieved smile appeared on her face. Free. This time, she could finally be truly free. The black trident smashed Sean's beautiful head into pieces. The other spectators shivered in the cold wind. Chen Zhao did not care whether the opponent was male or female, beautiful or not. Hell's chains! Zoran roared. Countless chains broke out of the ground and swept toward Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao's huge body was instantly bound tightly by the Hell's chains. But Chen Zhao was not trapped for long. Chen Zhao flipped his wrists and grabbed the chains on his arms. He pulled hard and the ground seemed to have been plucked. The chains on Chen Zhao's body were like spider silk. The Hell's chains were torn to pieces. Radiant Emperor, kill! Erewhon's attack was dozens of times more powerful than the previous one. It landed on Chen Zhao as if it was going to split the ground. But the result this time was even worse than last time. At least Chen Zhao could see blood last time. But this time, the huge sword fell apart the moment it landed. In the blink of an eye, Chen Zhao appeared before Erewhon and grabbed her head. He crushed it like a watermelon. Everyone received a huge visual impact. Zoran did not stop. Chen Zhao turned around and threw the black trident. Whoosh! Zoran was pierced by the black trident. The black trident had the power to kill gods. The immortal power inner core of old turtle embedded in it turned the black trident from a normal magic weapon into a weapon that could kill gods. Zoran looked down at the huge hole in his chest. He suddenly smiled and flipped forward. A pillar of light shot into the sky. It was like the last light of this worshipped god. The 4 Pillar Kings had all turned to dust. 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 1823. The black trident was stuck in the ground. Chen Zhao didn't take it back. He turned to look at Warren and grinned. You look really ugly, but it looks like you can take a beating. You think you can beat me? Warren was both shocked and angry. He looked at Chen Zhao with some fear in his eyes. But Warren clearly wasn't going to give up. Waylon's body suddenly enlarged. No, it wasn't just enlarging. It was the armor on his body that was enlarging. Bigger and bigger. 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters. He didn't stop until he was 200 meters tall. Right now, Warren was like a statue made of gold. However, this golden statue could move. Everyone was dumbfounded as they looked at the golden giant that blotted out the sky. Their astonishment couldn't be described with words. This was beyond their understanding. It was also beyond what they could do. Chen Zhao's body also glowed gold, but it wasn't obvious. Chen Zhao looked up at the 200-meter tall golden giant. He murmured to himself, if only this was real gold. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao could only think about it in his head. This giant was probably 100,000 tons, right? Chen Zhao flew up and kicked the golden giant's left thigh. Crack! The golden giant's left thigh deformed from the kick. Everyone's mouths were wide open. Chen Zhao was indeed tall compared to normal people, but compared to a 200-meter tall golden giant, he was still tiny and insignificant. But it was the difference between an ant and an elephant. The golden giant's thigh was broken by Chen Zhao's kick. The moment the golden giant lost its balance, it reached out to slap Chen Zhao in the air. But the next moment, Chen Zhao grabbed the golden giant's body and threw it over his shoulder. Rumble! Everyone's mouths were wide open. Barbara Rush gulped. She was provoking him just now, right? She must have been blessed by God. She actually didn't get killed. Nawat Singh lay on the ground weakly, but she was also watching the battle. To her, this was the most shocking. Now, she finally understood how big the difference between her and Chen Zhao was. Even though they had the same abilities, there was a fundamental difference between them. This gap couldn't be bridged at all. She had been wondering if she could borrow a fraction of Chen Zhao's power with mirror magic. Would she be able to do that? Only now did she understand. How much was that? 1%? Or 1 in 1,000? Xian Li clutched her chest. She tried her best to imagine how powerful Chen Zhao would be after adopting them, but she had never thought that Chen Zhao would display such a shocking side. As for Warren's men, Maji Vrykul and the others, they couldn't describe their astonishment. The 4 Pillar Kings were all dead. They were practically tortured to death by Chen Zhao. Although their battle was shocking, it was not soul-stirring. Warren, who'd inherited Quimir's power, was also suppressed. Bang! A huge golden arm flew up. Roar! The golden giant let out a strange cry as Chen Zhao pressed it against the ground. Chen Zhao flew up and then dove down, landing heavily on the golden giant's chest. The golden giant couldn't get up in time and was once again blasted to the ground. The golden giant's chest had already caved in. Bang! Rumble! The golden giant finally lay motionless on the ground. Chen Zhao went up and twisted the golden giant's neck. Then he punched the golden giant's head. The golden giant's head was severely deformed. Chen Zhao punched a few more times, each with endless power. Finally, the metal shell was destroyed beyond recognition. Chen Zhao saw Warren, who was hiding inside. Warren stared at Chen Zhao in shock and anger. "You damn bastard! I haven't lost yet." Chen Zhao went up and pried open the metal. Warren was completely exposed before Chen Zhao. Warren fought back again. Countless golden swords shot at Chen Zhao. At the same time, he turned to leave. But Chen Zhao dodged and blocked Warren's figure. With a dragon tail whip, Warren was smashed into the ground heavily. "Maji, Geraldine, do it!" Warren roared. Warren wanted Maji Vrykul and Geraldine Vrykul to attack. Of course, he wasn't targeting Chen Zhao. 100 of them wouldn't be enough for Chen Zhao. Warren wanted the 2 of them to attack the kids. This was to distract Chen Zhao. Maji Vrykul and Geraldine Vrykul glanced at each other. After a slight hesitation, they were about to attack the kids. But just then, a huge figure crawled out of the darkness. It was a completely black beast with wings on its back. There wasn't a single bit of skin on its body. It emitted a dangerous aura and protected the kids behind it. Maji Vrykul and Geraldine Vrykul were helpless. This black beast was most likely related to Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao smashed Warren before the kids with a punch. Warren jumped up and immediately wanted to harm the kids. Just then, Chen Zhao stepped over and pressed him to the ground. Chen Zhao tore off Warren's armor, but the armor was torn off along with his bones and flesh. But after Chen Zhao tossed the armor part away, it flew back and stuck to Warren's body. "I hate these unkillable cockroaches." Chen Zhao waved his hand. The black trident that had been hundreds of meters away flew back into his hand. Chen Zhao stabbed the black trident into Warren's abdomen. Wah! Ah! Warren let out a tragic scream. The black trident pierced into his body, causing his powerful recovery ability to lose its effect. Even the holy armor couldn't protect him. This time, Chen Zhao easily took off Warren's helmet. He looked up at Xinli Singh. "Xinli, do you want revenge?" Xinli's chest heaved up and down. Just as she was hesitating, the youngest Sindora walked over to Warren with her short legs. Bam! She spat at Warren's face. "I'm going to kill you, little—" Chen Zhao stuffed a mouthful of dirt into Warren's mouth. "Uncle, can I do anything?" Kilo asked. "Yes, anything." Chen Zhao nodded, but then he added, "Don't do dirty things in front of your brothers and sisters." Crow went up and gave Walloon a heavy punch. However, his attack did not do much damage to Warren. Even though Warren's magic, recovery, and the power of the holy artifact were all suppressed. But he was still powerful. "Sindora, Mara, what are you 2 doing?" "Uncle," Mara said innocently, "I'm competing with Sindora to see who can spit more." Chen Zhao rubbed his forehead. "Binance, put on your pants." "I order you, put on your pants." "9 heavens, divine emperor."